Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Deku Didn't Need a Quirk to be a Hero? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanf. It's fine now. But because I am here. Rewind. Play. It's fine now. But because I am here. Rewind. Play. It's fine now. But because I am here. Rewind. Play. It's fine now. But because I am here. Rewind. Play. It's fine now. But because I am here. Rewind. Play. It's fine now. But because I am here. Rewind. Play. It's fine now. But because I am here. Pause. The door to the room creaks open. The toddler sitting in front of the computer hesitates before turning around in his chair. A young woman with long green hair and tearful green eyes stands there in the doorway, looking lost as though she couldn't decide whether she should comfort the crying child or leave him be. Mama, he whimpers before pointing up at the smiling hero on the screen. Do you think that I can still be a hero? He asks, his voice choked up from crying. The woman breaks down in tears right then and there. She runs up and kneels down beside the child to pull him into a protective hug. I'm so sorry, Izuku. She whispers in between sobs. The room fades away, but the boy can still hear her heart-wrenching words echo in the background like a broken record. Suddenly the ground gives away and the boy is falling. A scrawny, freckled teenager jolts awake from his dream, causing him to accidentally roll out of bed and ceremoniously goes splat face-first on the cold hardwood floor. He clutches his nose and almost lets out an unholy rant of cuss words, before remembering that his roommate would kill him if he accidentally woke him up. So he sucks up the pain and drags himself to the bathroom to take care of the nosebleed. He flicks on the lights, revealing a disheveled teen staring back at him through the mirror. Izuku carefully washes the blood from his face, taking gentle care of his nose and making sure it wasn't broken. He then checks his watch and decides that it's probably a good time to wake up anyways so that he doesn't have to fight his roomie for the shower. As if on cue, there's a loud pounding on the bathroom door. You better not be hogging all the hot water, you useless freak. Hurry the fuck up. His roommate, Ryushi Teiyo, shrieks from the opposite side. But Izuku should not have tempted fate's hand. After taking a brief shower, Izuku takes the time to get a good look at himself in the mirror while brushing his teeth. His dark green hair looks unruly and wild as usual, but it would probably be a good idea to get a haircut soon so that Izuku would look less like a walking bush. His eyes are no longer the twinkling green eyes of a hero-obsessed child, now they are unnervingly dull and lifeless. His cheeks are a little more hollow than they used to be, but that's Izuku's fault for skipping too many meals. Too many sleepless nights have left permanent dark circles beneath his eyes. I'm done, he says before stepping out of the bathroom, then quickly stepping out of the way for Ryushi to barge into the bathroom. Finally. You sure took your damn sweet-ass time there. The ill-tempered boy snaps before slamming the door and locking it. Izuku just blinks slowly before continuing on with his routine, his mind wandering off on its own as his physical body goes on autopilot to get him through the day. Anyone he happens to come across steps out of his way, giving him a wide bubble of space as though he had a contagious disease. The 12-year-old shrinks in on himself to try and make himself as unnoticeable as possible. Years of exposure to pity and scorn has made him sensitive to what other people may think of him. He can see it in their eyes, he can hear it whispered behind his back, poor little Deku. He arrives to his class early, automatically moving to grab the seat shoved in the back corner where he can gaze out the window and be left alone. He stops in his tracks, however, when he sees that there is someone sitting in said desk already. Izuku doesn't recognize him at all, which is strange considering how long Izuku has been trapped at the orphanage now. Even though Izuku doesn't interact with a lot of the people around him, he is still very aware of the faces of the people who shamelessly discriminate him on a daily basis. Could he be new? Did he just arrive today? What's his story? The other boy doesn't seem to notice Izuku's presence, his violet eyes gazing intently outside at the clouds rolling across the sky. Izuku takes this as an opportunity to visually analyze the newcomer, taking in his physical appearance and making mental notes as he did. It's clear as day that the boy suffers from insomnia, if the dark bags underneath his bored violet eyes are any indicator. Upon closer speculation, his indigo-colored hair seems to be floating naturally in the open air. One might simply assume that it's held up with gel, but Izuku knows that it is oftentimes the indicator of an activated mental quirk, similar to how Eraserhead's hair floats when his quirk is activated. Slapped on his wrists are a pair of quirk suppressors. A dangerous mental quirk he can't control, perhaps? Izuku is snapped out of his train of thought when the boy finally notices his staring. The insomniac is quick to shoot him an annoyed glare, not liking the invasion to his privacy. Izuku subconsciously shrinks under the scrutinizing gaze. "Can I help you?" he drawls, his voice dry and weary. Izuku immediately turns his eyes to his shoes, embarrassed at the fact that he has been caught staring. "Sorry. It's just that, you're sitting where I usually sit," and his words come out in an awkward jumbled mess, causing his cheeks to turn red as his embarrassment grows with his inability to speak. He then prepares himself for the boy to make fun of his stuttering, his scalding insults, or onslaught of jibes. To Izuku's shock, however, the other teenager doesn't say anything at all. Instead, he starts to look embarrassed at himself. "Sorry, I'm new and I didn't know there was a seating chart," he explains sheepishly while getting out of the seat. Izuku's eyes widen and he frantically waves his arms. "No. I'm sorry. There's no seating assignments. I just like to sit there. You can stay if you want. You don't have to move." The boy shakes his head. "It's not a big deal. I just like to sit in the back in general so that I can nap. I'll just move over a desk." "Are you sure?" Izuku questions, feeling bad for making the other boy move for him. "It's fine." The boy insists with the tiniest of smiles on his lips. So he moves to the desk beside Izuku so that the greenette can have the seclusion of his back corner again. "Thank you. What's your name?" Izuku asks, his curiosity piqued by the boy since he's the only person to show him any form of kindness in years. "Shinso Hitoshi." "And yours?" "I'm Midoriya Izuku." Little did they know that one small act of kindness blossomed into a lifelong friendship that would stand against the trials of fate. It only took a couple of days for the two outcasts to bond and become the closest of friends. In that span of time, Shinso deemed Izuku trustworthy enough to tell him his backstory and gave him the right to call him by his first name. When he gained his villainous quirk at the tender age of 4, Hitoshi had accidentally used his brainwashing quirk on his birth parents during a small tantrum, as most children do. This scared his parents shitless, causing them to take extreme measures by muzzling their own son and locking him up in his room like a prisoner. Luckily, Hitoshi's mysterious disappearance didn't go unnoticed by his kindergarten teacher, and Child Services rescued Hitoshi from the Hell House only 2 weeks later. He doesn't know what became of his birth parents, but he sincerely hopes that they are locked up in a cell somewhere. Izuku doesn't say it, but he hopes for the same thing as well. Long story short, Hitoshi has gained a reputation in the system for being a runaway. But he explains that the only reason he runs away is because he has a deep fear of having parents again, especially after what his own birth parents did to him. Izuku openly admits that he can't relate to Hitoshi's fear of parents, since he can't even remember his own parents. According to the orphanage's records, his mother dropped him off when he was 4.5. For what reason? It was never confirmed. That box on the registration papers was intentionally left blank. But Izuku has a feeling that the reason is pretty damn clear. Especially since the box labeled "Any medical issues" has the word "quirkless" printed in bold text for the whole world to see. When Izuku was young and still green to the harsh realities of the world around him, he used to fantasize that his mother or father would come bursting through the orphanage doors like All Might to save him from the bullies that would constantly pick on him. Then his parents would take him home, give him hugs to make him feel better, teach him how to ride a bike, give him praise for his high grades in school, bake cookies and brownies together, etc. Like Hitoshi, he also has a bad reputation in the system for being a runaway. Unlike Hitoshi, Izuku spends that precious time to try and find his birth parents. So as you can guess, when you put two rebellious masterminds together, something is bound to happen. Izuku and Hitoshi spend their free time strategizing their next escape from the dreaded orphanage, and it didn't take long for them to come up with a foolproof plan. That weekend, they set their plan into motion. They spent Saturday preparing for their escape by packing the bare essentials to help them survive. Hitoshi still had some money he stole off of a mugger during one of his last escapades. Izuku still had the cash he received 2 years ago in return for saving a woman from an attempted rape. Together, the money will be enough to buy themselves food for the next few weeks. In their own respective bags are a change of civilian clothing, since the orphanage forces them to wear uniforms, a water bottle, and their toiletries. They also decided that they should allow themselves to take one precious personal belonging with them. Hitoshi packed a very old-looking Eraserhead action figure. Izuku was torn between the last photo he had of his mum or his limited edition All Might action figure. In the end, Hitoshi said he could take both. That night, they held their breath in suspense as they snuck away into the night. The next morning, the police would receive a frantic call from the orphanage reporting the disappearance of 2 boys. It's been about a week since they've escaped their prison. People have started looking for them, their faces are being plastered on the news, their story is being told in the paper, heroes and policemen have been asking around for them on their patrols. Luckily, Izuku and Hitoshi were smart and this wasn't their first rodeo. The first thing they did was dye their hair black, since green and purple hair is way too noticeable out in the open. Then they ditched their uniforms in the nearest dumpster and changed into their street clothes. Izuku chose to wear a black hoodie and dark gray sweats. Hitoshi chose to wear a purple hoodie with a picture of a cat on the front and navy blue jeans. Both of them have dark sunglasses to cover their eyes, but in the future they plan to buy colored eye contacts to hide their true eye color. This was the most they could afford with the cash they had on hand. Then came the issue with where they were going to live. Unsurprisingly, Izuku already had a place in mind. After an hour of walking, they finally arrived at Dagoba Beach, which has become more like Dagoba Dump over the years, where Izuku led the way to an abandoned gardening shed that was somehow still in good shape. Izuku had found it a couple of years ago on his first attempt to run away from the orphanage. It's not exactly a penthouse, but it'll have to do for now until they can get the money to rent an apartment or something. Hitoshi has gotten into the habit of affectionately calling it their hobo shack. So now that a week has passed, the pair have been surviving by recycling the empty bottles and cans left on the sand. Every day, they would spend the money they received on food. However, they know that they can't live off of recycling money forever. They have to get jobs. I don't know about this, Hitoshi. It feels like a bad idea. What if someone sees us and reports us? We have our disguises. Plus, we don't really have that much of a choice. Hitoshi replies sensibly, while attempting to comb his wild hair in front of a partially broken mirror. Izuku takes a deep breath. You're right. I hate to admit it, but... Hitoshi glances at his partner over his left shoulder. Scared? A slight nod. Terrified actually. The last thing I want to do is lose my chance at freedom. Izuku's hands are gripping his knees so hard that Hitoshi can see his knuckles turning white. I'm never going back again. I've waited too long for this. My mother is somewhere out there, waiting for me to come find her. This is probably the only chance I've got. And what if they catch us? What if we get caught? They'll drag us back to that hellhole and separate us. You'll probably get sent away again, and then I'll be all alone. I'll be alone again. I don't want to lose my only friend. I'm just so scared. His muttering continues to grow worse and worse as his thoughts begin to spiral deeper and deeper until the panic settles into his mind. Guilt suddenly clouds Shinso's heart and he walks over to sit beside his friend. He pulls the other boy into a one-armed hug and the muttering boy leans into the hold. I'm sorry if it felt like I was forcing you. You don't have to do it if you don't want to. Izuku shakes his head. No, that would be wrong. Making you work while I lay around in the hobo shack all day. Are you sure? Hitoshi inquires. Yeah. But Hitoshi can still see the unease in Izuku's eyes. Would it make you feel better if we worked at the same place? Izuku perks up immediately. That would be nice. Both of them sit inside their home for a little bit longer, Hitoshi's arms still hugging Izuku to his side and Izuku's head resting on the other boy's shoulder. I'm sorry. I don't want my business responsible for anything that happens to you at work, Akatani-san. I'm afraid your lack of quirk will make some of my other employees uncomfortable, the restaurant owner says with a slight grimace on his face before turning his attention to Hitoshi, but I'm willing to hire you, Ongaka-san. What do you say? He offers, outstretching a hand to Hitoshi with the fakest smile on his pudgy face. Hitoshi glares down at the man's hand and gives the man a disgusted sneer. Sorry, but we're a package deal. He promptly stands up from his seat and drags Izuku out of the room, making sure that he slammed the door extra hard on the way out. Once outside, Izuku breaks away from Hitoshi's grip and gives his friend a frustrated glare. Hitoshi, that was totally unnecessary. You could have just taken the job. Anyone who is going to treat you like a lesser being just because you're quirkless isn't someone I want to work under. Hitoshi retorts. Hitoshi, Izuku says in exasperation, his eyes pleading. Hitoshi lets out a huff and crosses his arms. Fine. I promise that if the next place offers me a job, I'll accept it. This earned him a beaming smile, and for a couple of seconds he is temporarily blinded by Izuku's sheer radiance. The next stop on their list is a small corner cafe curiously named The Lounge. It had recently opened and according to the newspaper advertisement, the owner needed full-time employees. When the duo arrived at the cafe, they thought they had wandered into a pub by accident. At the very back of the large space is a drinking bar, but instead of the shelves showcasing alcohol, it has been modified to display a wide assortment of decorated coffee mugs and teacups. In the center of the space is a pool table and off to the left side is a couple of pinball machines. Overhead, you can hear smooth jazz music playing. The only thing that's considered normal for a cafe are the tables and chairs hogging up the right side of the room. Are you guys gonna order something or what? A moody voice says behind them, startling the two teens. Both boys spin around and come face to face with the scariest looking woman they've ever seen. Izuku did not scream like those white bitches who dive first in horror movies, and Hitoshi did not dive behind Izuku for protection. Both will deny any claim of such, even though the cafe's security cameras had caught everything. The woman looks to be about in her early 20s. On top she wears a plain white t-shirt with a black leather jacket, on the bottom she wears ripped blue jeans and knee-high black leather boots. Wrapped around her head is a bright red bandana, a sharp contrast to her messy bob of neon green hair. Around her neck hangs a necklace with the cross. The most unique trait about her, besides her overall rebel look, are her eyes. They are an intense lime green that remind Izuku of a viper staring down its prey. And that's exactly what Izuku feels like right now, prey. She continues to stare them down, but now she has one brow raised in confusion. What's your guy's problem? Both teens quickly compose themselves and Hitoshi is the first person to regain his ability to speak. Sorry. We were just startled. We didn't notice you sneak up on us. The woman snorts and crosses her arms. You two yahoos were so busy gawking that you didn't even notice me sneak up behind you. Spacing out like that can be really dangerous, especially for a couple of clueless kids like you two. She then moves around them to head back towards the bar. The two glance at each other before choosing to follow her. Then she goes inside the bar and starts making something. Sit down already, will ya? Starting to creep me out? She orders tells them. They immediately sit down and she places 2 mugs of steaming hot cocoa in front of them. Izuku and Hitoshi glance at each other nervously, which causes the woman to let out an exasperated sigh. It's not poison, nitwits. Drink up. Both of you look like you've been to hell and back, and you're both skinny to boot. Some sugar will do you some good. Izuku is the first to pick up his mug and take a sip, and the effect is almost immediate. His eyes widen and he almost starts chugging the thing, despite how hot it must be. He turns to Hitoshi. It's so good, he says before chugging the rest, completely ignoring the fact that his mouth is now numb. Hitoshi takes a sip and he has to admit, it's probably the best hot chocolate he's ever had in his life, but he doesn't chug it down like Izuku since it's still way too hot. While the two are finishing up their drinks, the lady pulls up a chair and sits across from them at the bar. Now that you two don't look like you're about to pass out, let's start off with introductions. My name is Horikoshi Aya. If you haven't figured it out by now, I'm the boss of this place. Izuku avoids eye contact with the intimidating woman and whispers, "My name is Akatani Mikumo." Shinso places the finished mug down. "My name is Ongaku Hibiki. We were wondering if we could apply for a job here, Horikoshi-san," he says with a bit more confidence. "Don't call me that. It makes me feel like an old hag. Just Aya-san is fine," she says while casually leaning back in her chair with her eyes closed. "So you two squirts want jobs, right?" She grouches. They both nod their heads urgently. Aya may look aloof on the outside, but on the inside she feels torn up about the situation she has just been thrown into. These two boys are clearly underage minors. Judging by their clothes and overall ratty appearance, they're probably homeless. Now Aya is no Ida. She keeps her eyes on the news and she knows the two kids in front of her are the missing brats with their faces plastered across every television screen in Japan. They've done a good job with the disguises, but if anyone paid a little more attention they would be able to make a connection and recognize them right away. Her heart goes out to them, because she knows what it's like to be scared and alone on the streets. On the other hand, hiring them would be a risk for not only herself but also to them. Any customer could come in and happen to recognize them from TV, which would result in the cops getting involved, and Aya hates cops more than anything on this earth. She lets out a sigh and lets her fingers wander to the silver rosary she wears on her neck. "Oh God, give me a sign to help me make a choice," she silently pleads. The sound of the door opening causes the two teens to jump, but Aya calmly opens her eyes and sits up straight. Two police officers had entered the cafe and were quickly making their way to the bar where the three of them were. Izuku and Hitoshi were frozen in their seats, too scared to even move as the officers approached them. Aya stands up. "What can I get you fine gentlemen today?" The two officers don't even spare the two teenagers a glance. Their focus is only on the menu hanging above Aya's head. The officer on the right hums and replies, "I'll take a large mocha latte." The officer on the left grimaces at his partner's choice, "Plain black coffee. No sugar." Aya scribbles down their orders and replies, "That'll be 800 yen. Your order will be out shortly. Please feel free to take a seat or enjoy the entertainment the lounge has to provide." The two officers thank her before sitting down beside the two boys, who both look too frightened to even blink or breathe. She has to stifle a laugh at their priceless expressions. While making the coffee, Aya can't help but eavesdrop onto the conversation going on between the two policemen. "When do you think those two kids will be found?" "When they want to be found, I guess. I just can't wait for the search to be over." "Yes, same. I don't know why. The media has to make such a big deal about it. It's 'cause one of the boys is quirkless. The other has a mind control quirk. That's too bad. The quirkless one is probably already dead by now. And the other one has probably joined some criminal gang. Villains would love to have a quirk like that on their side." "Yeah, you're probably right." Aya tunes them out, not wanting to cause a scene for attacking two police officers. God knows she's gotten into trouble for that way too many times in her life. But hearing them say those kind of things about two children makes her blood boil. She places the order in front of them, and they leave without knowing how close they were to solving the very case they were just conversing about. The two boys sag on their stools in relief, both of them letting out the breath they had been holding. Aya places a chaste kiss on her rosary, knowing what she had just witnessed was a clear answer to her prayer. She lets out another sigh, gaining the two boys' attention. "I'll hire both of you. I'm gonna need the extra hands on deck since I plan on expanding my menu a bit. Which one of you is good at quick math?" Izuku raises his hand without hesitation. "Okay, which one of you knows how to cook?" Izuku's hand immediately drops, but Hitoshi's hand shoots up. Aya nods, satisfied with their response. "All right. It's getting late and almost closing time. So tomorrow will be your first day of training. I'll give you guys 1 week to prove to me that you can handle responsibilities." She points at Izuku, "You'll be manning the cash register. And you." She points at Hitoshi, "You'll be my second pair of hands in the kitchen. Now are there any questions?" Izuku raises his hand. Aya-san, what uniforms do you want us to wear?" "Huh?" Aya gives the kid an incredulous look. "I don't give a shit about what you wear. Just make sure you're not butt naked. Do I dress up like some fucking cafe maid to you?" Izuku is quick to shake his head. Hitoshi raises his hand. "Don't you want to ask us our quirks first?" Aya rolls her eyes. I don't give a shit about your guys' quirks. As long you are capable of doing the tasks I give you, I don't care if you have laser eyes or super smell. Got that? Hitoshi's eyes widen in surprise and he barely manages a small nod. Alright, be here at 5 in the morning. We open at 7. Don't worry about breakfast. Just get your asses dressed and come straight here. Understand? Yes, ma'am. And another thing, drop the fucking formalities. Yes, Aya-san. It has been about a month since Aya had hired the 2 young boys and she is grateful for the extra help around the place. However, she hates the fact that she can feel herself getting attached to them. To her, they are like the younger siblings she will never have and the thought of anything happening to them frightens her to death. What if they get caught? What if they get hurt? What if they get killed? What if? A hand taps her shoulder, breaking her away from the spiraling whirlwind of her negative thoughts. Aya-san, are you all right? She blinks and looks over her shoulder to see Hitoshi eyeing her with concern. Yeah, why? It's nothing. You just had a really worried look on your face. I was wondering if something was wrong. Her lips twitch upwards into a smile and she ruffles the kid's fluffy hair. Nothing's wrong, Hibiki. I was just daydreaming. She lies with a guilty conscience. His eyebrows crinkle with doubt, but he doesn't call her out on her little fib. Aya rarely, if ever, lies about anything. He knows how much she hates it. So he knows she must have a good reason to do so. Aya starts walking to the front and Hitoshi follows her. Working behind the bar is Izuku, who's busy wiping down the countertop with a wet rag. When they exit the kitchen, Izuku looks up from his work and says, I'm done cleaning the bar, Aya-san. We'll see about that. Their boss crosses her arms as she walks behind the bar to inspect Izuku's work, her keen eyes scanning over the polished surface. After a minute she shoots Izuku a rare smile. Not bad, Mikumo. Izuku beams from the praise. Okay, you guys know the drill for Sunday. I'm gonna stay back here in my office to handle the bills and all that responsible adult shit. You two are going to go restock on supplies. She places a small wad of cash on the countertop in front of them. I know the exact amount of money in this deck right here. If you spend any of it on shit like candy or drugs, I'm going to fucking know. So don't even try it, you hear? They both bob their heads up and down in fear of the barista's wrath. Then she pulls out a list from her back pocket and slams it on the counter next to the cash. Here's the list of shit you need to buy. Be back here by 3 o'clock. No later than that or else I'm gonna come hunt you down with my rolling pin. Understand? Both of them pale at the memory of the rolling pin incident. Yes, Aya-san. Good. Now scram. Hitoshi takes a deep breath through his nose, holds it for a few seconds, before letting out a deep and tired sigh. Aya-san is going to kill us with her rolling pin. The time on the clock reads 2:45 p.m. So where are our 2 lovely protagonists? Izuku and Hitoshi are currently hiding in the baking aisle of the store, while a villain is pointing a pistol in the cashier's face. From their hiding place, Izuku can hear small bits and pieces of the villain's demands to the cashier. This big call the cops, kill. That last bit sent a shiver of fear through Izuku's body and dread pooled inside of his gut like a sunken puddle of ice. What's wrong, Izuku? Hitoshi whispers, noticing his best friend's eyes have widened to the size of dinner plates and his face has gone a few shades paler. Izuku looks over his shoulder, fear written all across his face. He's going to kill everybody, Hitoshi. We're all hostages now. Hitoshi sucks in a sharp breath. Shit? So now I guess the only option is to play the waiting game until the heroes come? Hurry the fuck up. The villain screeches, causing the young cashier to let out a shaky sob as she unloads the money into a bag. Izuku shakes his head. There's no time. By the time the heroes come, that guy will be long gone. We have to do something. Well, what do you suggest we do? Hitoshi harshly whispers. You can use your quirk on him and make him surrender. Hitoshi rapidly shakes his head. There are cameras, Izuku. If someone sees me using my quirk, they'll connect the dots and trace it back to me. Then we'll both get caught. Izuku pulls at his curls in frustration, racking his brain to come up with a plan. Let's see what we've got. We're in the baking aisle, which means there should be stuff we can use for improvised weapons. Rolling pins, kitchen twine, pie weights, flour, and sure enough, a plan starts to bake. pun intended, in his mind. After thinking it through several times, he turns to Hitoshi with a dangerous shit-eating grin on his face. I have a plan. And here's what we need. After Izuku ran through his master plan, Hitoshi stares at his friend in awe. That's genius, and maybe a little crazy. Let's do it. Izuku jumps out of their aisle, waving his arms over his head. Hey! Over here, ugly! He screams at the top of his lungs. Everyone in the store, including the villain, turn their attention to the suicidal teenager wielding a rolling pin like a sword. The civilians immediately start shouting at him to get down, but he simply stands there as though what he was doing was not totally stupid and crazy. The villain, on the other hand, growls and aims his pistol at Izuku's head. I hate it when people try to play hero. So I suggest you get down, kid, before I put a bullet in your brain. He threatens in a low voice. Izuku mocks an astonished gasp. Oh my! You're going to kill me? What a tragedy! He declares dramatically. Look, kid. Last chance. Step aside. While the villain is distracted, Hitoshi has slipped quietly into the aisle right behind the villain. In his right hand is a bag of flour and in his left is a small bag of pie weights. Hitoshi quickly sticks out a thumbs up to show Izuku he's in position and ready to move on to phase 2. Izuku sees the signal and grins. What you smilin' about, kid? The villain questions, honestly feeling a little scared from the kid's predatory smile. Over here, asshole. He spins around to see another teenager standing in the aisle behind him with a mischievous smirk. Before he can even react, the brat throws a bag towards him and suddenly he's blinded and lost in a cloud of white flour. He sputters and coughs from accidentally inhaling the fine powder. He flails to try to grab the brat, but his feet suddenly slide out from underneath him and he kisses the hard ground with his powdered face. The villain frantically tries to get up, but the small ceramic pie weights surrounding him make it an almost impossible task to even get up into a kneeling position before kissing the ground again. His gun is lost somewhere he can barely even see. Seeing the villain completely helpless, Izuku takes the opening and charges forward with his almighty, no pun intended, rolling pin. With a battle cry, he raises his weapon and brings it down as hard as possible upon the villain's skull. The villain's body hits the ground with a loud thud and Hitoshi pulls out the kitchen twine from his hoodie. While both boys were tying up the unconscious villain, the distraught cashier phoned the cops and the other customers finally came out of hiding now that the threat was apprehended. Izuku helped to escort the customers outside, while Hitoshi hung back to pay for the groceries they came for in the first place. In less than 5 minutes, 2 police cruisers pulled up into the parking lot and 3 cops jump out to apprehend the villain. Another man stepped out of the cruiser and Izuku took note of his tan trench coat. A detective? The detective's eyes connect with Izuku's green orbs and he approaches the teen. I heard that you and your friend were the ones who apprehended the villain. Nice work, but I hope you understand how dangerous your actions were. I understand, D detective, B, but I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. True. The detective smiles and holds out his hand. I'm Detective Tsukachi Naomasa for the Mizudafu precinct. What's your name, kid? Izuku hesitates before shaking his hand. My name is Akitani Mikumo. He nervously replies with a shaky smile of his own. False. Naomasa frowns. I'm sorry, but I'm going to need your real name to file a police report. Don't worry about getting in trouble. As long you and your friend didn't use your quirks, you should be fine. You guys didn't use your quirks, right? Izuku is too panicked to even give the man a proper response. How did he know I was lying? Is that his quirk? Holy shit, I'm screwed. What am I going to do? Hey, Mikumo. Are you ready to go? Izuku turns around to see Hitoshi waltzing up to them at a leisurely pace. In his arms are the 6 heavy grocery bags that they needed to haul all the way back to the cafe. Izuku nods. Yeah, I'm coming. He turns back to Detective Tsukachi and asks, can I talk to my friend really fast to explain what's going on? Sure. I'll be right here. Without hesitation, Izuku grabs Hitoshi and drags him away from the detective until they are out of earshot. Hitoshi, surprised by Izuku's aggressiveness, questions, what's going on? Are you okay? Izuku shakes his head. We have a big problem. That guy has a lie detector quirk or something. I told him my name and he somehow knew I lied. He wants to interrogate both of us about the incident. He'll want to know why we have fake names, and then he'll arrest us, and they'll find us, and they'll take us back, and then they'll separate us, and... Before Izuku can ramble any farther, Hitoshi slaps his hand over his muttering mouth. Whoa. Whoa there, buddy. Slow down and take some deep breaths. I'll handle this. Izuku tries to suppress the bile rising in the back of his throat and takes a deep breath. How? He rolls his eyes. Duh, I have a quirk, Izuku. Izuku blinks. Oh. Hitoshi calmly walks over to the detective with a nervous Izuku in tow. Naomasa takes out his notepad and pen, before giving both teens his full attention. Alright guys, I won't try to take up too much of your time. I just have to ask you guys about what happened from your point of view. What do you need to know? Hitoshi asks smoothly. Well, you can start off by... The detective's speech is cut off midway and his face goes completely blank. After I release you, you will be frozen in place for 5 whole minutes. Nod if you understand. He slowly bobs his head, and Hitoshi releases his hold on the mental link. Both boys don't hesitate to make or break for it. They book it around the corner and they keep sprinting all the way back to the lounge. Passerbys barely give the teens a second glance as they run past them as though their lives depended on it. Well, technically their lives are at stake. Right now they can only pray that Aya-san will be too busy scolding them to use her infamous rolling pin. At 3:27 p.m., they both shamelessly collapse on the ground of the cafe in a sweaty, tangled lump amongst the bulging bags of groceries laying haphazardly around them in a circle. We made it. We're alive. Izuku gasps in between each breath. Not for long, brat. Both of them freeze and slowly turn around to see the menacing glare of their boss, that wicked glint in her eye that promises only pain and torture. On her face is a merciless smile that is stretched a little bit too wide, giving her a slightly unhinged appearance as she stares down her prey. In her hands is the dreaded rolling pin. Izuku waves his arms in front of his face and cries, Wait. We can explain. I don't want to hear your shitty excuses. She roars, pointing the end of the rolling pin at their chests. 27 fucking minutes late? How do you even explain that? We got caught up in a villain attack at the store. Hitoshi blurts out. The V-villain was going to get away, so Hibiki and IST stopped him. Izuku adds quickly. Then Mikumo got held up by a detective, so Hibiki had to use his quirk to get us out of it. Then we had to sprint over here. And that's why we're late. Izuku concludes. Aya crosses her arms, her lips turning downwards into a slight frown and her eyebrows scrunching together. What was the name of this detective? Izuku and Hitoshi share a confused look, before Izuku replies. I think his name was Detective Tsukachi. He had a quirk that could tell whether I was lying or not. The barista hisses at the mention of the name. Phew. Not Mr. Polygraph. She quickly runs to her office and checks the security monitors. The security camera recording the alley to the left of the cafe shows a police car roll up and park in the narrow space. Double fuck. She curses quietly, before poking her head out the door and motioning the 2 boys inside. Then she throws open a closet full of leather jackets and baking aprons. Aya-san, what's wrong? Hitoshi asks, noticing how her face had gone pale. She takes a deep breath and orders, I need you 2 to hide in this closet until I tell you it's safe to come out. But why? Izuku presses. Just get in. She snaps and they both obey. She gently closes the doors, trapping both of them in total darkness. They listen in silence as she storms out of her office, the slamming of the heavy door signaling her exit. Meanwhile with Naomasa can only watch from his frozen state as both teenagers take off. Frustration churns inside of him for letting 2 kids give me the slip. Granted, he didn't expect the other boy to have a mind control quirk. However, that is no excuse for dropping his guard. He's a detective, for God's sake. Luckily, it didn't take too long for the quirk's hold to wear off. So Naomasa quickly rallied his men and reported his encounter with the 2 boys. So 2 kids gave you the slip, huh? His partner, Tamakawa Sansa, snickers. Naomasa can only groan in embarrassment. The cat man pats him on the back sympathetically and says, It happens to the best of us. What now, sir? Should we conduct a search? One of the newbies inquires, radio already in hand. Naomasa shakes his head. No, you and your partner need to take this guy. He gestures to the villain glaring at them through the window of the squad car. Back to the station and turn in a report. Officer Sansa and I will go after the kids. Yes, sir. Both officers salute and hop inside the squad car, before driving off, leaving the detective and his partner behind to continue the investigation. The first thing they did was go inside to run through the store's security feed of the past 30 minutes. They both watch in a mixture of awe and horror as they see Izuku's genius plan unfold as the two boys on the screen single-handedly take down the villain without any casualties. Holy shit. That kid must have some sort of analysis quirk to come up with a plan like that. Sansa comments. Naomasa shrugs. Perhaps, but you don't need a quirk to have a sharp mind. Let's see where our two vigilantes ran off to. He fast-forwards the feed to where he got mind-controlled. They watch as the two boys run down Mizudafu Boulevard towards the downtown district. Sansa hums. Looks like they ran towards downtown. Naomasa pulls out his cell phone and makes a call to his department. Someone picks up on the first ring. This is Officer Suzumi speaking. What's the situation? Detective? I've got two teenagers who gave me the slip before I could interview them. One of them used their quirk on me to get away. Can you pull up all feed from the security cameras in downtown and look for two teenagers? One is wearing a black hoodie and the other is wearing a purple hoodie. Both have black messy hair. Sure thing, detective. It'll take a hot minute, came her response. After about 2 minutes of waiting on the phone, she reports, I saw two suspects that matched that exact description run inside a cafe called The Lounge just right now. I'll send you the address right away. Thank you, Officer Suzumi, Naomasa says before ending the call. Shortly after, a text message with the address popped up on his phone and he smirks. Gotcha? Sansa started up the patrol car and within 8 minutes they were in front of the cafe and knocking on the front door. Switching to Aya's POV. No sooner did I exit my office did I hear 3 knocks on my front door. I heave a heavy sigh before opening the door and glaring down at the two people on the opposite side of the doorway. Mr. Polygraph and Mr. Cathead stare at me with comically wide eyes. Oh, Miss Horikoshi. It's nice to see you again. Naomasa fumbles. I dramatically roll my eyes. Drop the fucking formalities. You know how much I hate them. Mr. Cathead clears his throat and says, well, if you don't mind, we were wondering if you saw two teenagers run inside of your cafe. Yeah. A couple of yahoos decided to come barging into my cafe not too long ago. True. Are they still here? Mr. Polygraph inquires. Not here, but they're probably still nearby somewhere. True. Did you happen to have an encounter with them? She steps to the side so that they can see the discarded rolling pin on one of the tables. You see that rolling pin over there? A murder almost happened a few minutes ago. True. Can you describe them to us? One is short, wore a black hoodie. The slightly taller one wore a purple hoodie. True. I cross my arms across my chest. Are we done here? I was working on some important shit and I'd like to get back to it soon. True. Mr. Cathead sighs and says, all right. We'll leave you alone now, Miss Aya. Thank you for answering our questions. He heads back to the patrol car, but Mr. Polygraph lingers as though he has something to say but doesn't have the balls to say it. Got something else to say, detective? I ask curtly. He grimaces and bows down his head slightly. I just realized that I haven't given you a sincere apology for what happened last year. Save it? I snap. I don't need your fucking apology. And besides, I'm not the one you need to apologize to. Before he can utter another word, I slam the door in his face. Meanwhile, with the boys, what's going on, Hitoshi? Izuku asks, his voice small and frightened. I'm just as clueless as you are, Izuku. Hitoshi replies, his voice just as quiet. After a few minutes of tense silence, Izuku asks, do you mind if you can scoot over a bit, Hitoshi? I'm kinda squished. I would, but there's something digging into my back. I think it's a doorknob. Izuku raises an eyebrow in confusion. Hitoshi? How is there a doorknob digging into your back, if we're standing with our faces towards the closet doors? I don't know. Hitoshi replies hesitantly. Izuku reaches behind his friend's back and sure enough, there is a doorknob right between the teen's shoulder blades. Lean forward a bit, Hitoshi. His friend complies and Izuku is just barely able to turn the knob enough to hear a loud click. Both boys stare at each other in shock as a hidden door swings open to reveal a secret room, which is just as pitch black as the closet. Hitoshi is first to step inside, then roams alongside the walls and finds a light switch. He flips the switch, temporarily blinding the two boys with the sudden influx of lights. After letting their eyes adjust, they can only gawk at what they've discovered. The room is very small and cramped. Izuku approximates it's about 7 meters wide and 5 meters long. The entirety of the opposite wall is taken up by an assortment of tools and weapons hung up in display. The variety of tools are more ordinary and mundane, much like what one would find in their dad's toolbox. The amount of weapons on the wall, however, leave Izuku speechless. There are different types of handguns, a whole collection of daggers, a whip, a pair of eskrima sticks, a long metal bow stick, a high-tech crossbow, a few rifles, and a fucking katana. On their left is a glass display case with a tight body skin suit inside. The suit is completely black, other than the subtle gold-accented design here and there. In the middle of the breastplate is a glittering gold dragonfly insignia. On their right is a computer desk with numerous documents scattered all over the top in a messy pile. Izuku walks over to inspect them, and his eyes widen at the seemingly incoherent clutter of information. The first thing that he notices is that it's not written in Japanese, German perhaps? The documents are maps of the city, with little red scribbles all over the surface. Hitoshi peeks over his shoulder and lets out a long whistle. Her handwriting is even worse than yours, Izuku. Shut up, Hitoshi. He stammers, his eyes still roaming over the notes. Hitoshi turns his gaze to the computer full of encryption codes. What is all this? Izuku sets down the documents with shaky hands. I don't know, but I don't think we're supposed to be here. Both of them froze at the sound of the door creaking open. No shit, Sherlock. They whip around to see Aya leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. Her eyes staring at them with a mixture of emotions. They both jump away from the desk, apologies spilling from their lips like a broken faucet until Aya holds up a hand to silence them both. Don't worry, I'm not mad. Well, maybe a little, but that's besides the point. Hitoshi points an accusing finger at her. You're a villain, he exclaims in shock. Vigilante. She quickly corrects with a biting tone, before she casts her eyes to the ground. Well, ex-vigilante anyways. The gears begin to turn in Izuku's brain. Wait, works with a wide arsenal of weapons, gold dragonfly insignia. A light bulb goes off and Izuku's face breaks out into a wide grin. Oh my gosh. You're the infamous vigilante dragonfly. His smile suddenly fades. But, if you're dragonfly, then where are my wings? She finishes for him with a somber expression. Izuku looks at her in confusion. Why? You're famous for how you can fly across the entire city in 5 minutes flat. You're even faster than most of the flying heroes in the area. If that's why no one could catch you for so long. Aya nods with a faint smile on her face. You're right. My quirk was a mutation that gave me beautiful fairy-like wings and hollow bones, which is what allowed me to fly at a little over 200 miles per hour. Her smile falls once more and she heaves a heavy sigh. The only downside is that I'm prone to bone fractures and my wings were also extremely fragile. Hitoshi and Izuku glance at each other nervously, the obvious question at the tips of their tongue. In the end, curiosity wins out and Hitoshi inquires, so what happened to your wings? She flinches visibly and her body language shows her discomfort with the topic. Let's head upstairs and put away the groceries first. Then we can sit down and talk over some hot cocoa. Izuku and Hitoshi eagerly nod in agreement, and they have never moved so fast in their life to get a chore done. When they are sat down at the bar with their steaming mugs in hand, Aya takes a deep breath and says, Now listen here, brats. I think it goes unsaid that what I'm going to tell you cannot leave this circle. Got it? They both nod. Yes. Also, she adds, after I tell you guys my fucking sob story, I expect you guys to fess up and tell me who the hell you guys really are. And I mean the truth. Both of them freeze up and Aya has to bark out a laugh. Calm the fuck down. I already knew you guys were those brats who escaped from that fucking orphanage when I hired you too. If I had wanted to turn you guys into the cops, I would have done so already. Then why bother telling you about us then? Hitoshi speculates. I thought it was pretty clear. If I'm going to have to suffer by telling you twits the story of my fucking life, then it's only fair you guys suffer as well. Both boys turn to each other and shrug. That was fair enough for them. Aya takes a long sip from her mug before sighing through her nose. I didn't have the best childhood growing up. My mother was a hooker, so she never knew the identity of my sperm donor amongst the long list of her clientele. She had the fairy wing mutation I inherited. However, her body was not built for flight. So her quirk was labeled as useless, and she somehow got dragged down into the undersociety through drugs and sex. My mother wasn't ready for a little hellion like me, but she at least made sure I was fed and clothed. Despite her poor parenting skills, she still tried her best to protect me and shield me from the horrors of the underworld. Aya then lets out a mirthless laugh that makes Izuku's gut churn. Of course, she didn't do a good job of that either. Considering that I would sometimes come home from school to see her and a client getting it on in the kitchen, Shinso's and Izuku's faces burn crimson with embarrassment at the mention of. Aya ignores their horrified expressions and continues on with her story. One summer afternoon, I was 13 at the time. I came home to find my mother on the ground. She was beaten to a point where I almost didn't recognize her. Her face was so swollen and there was so much blood. Aya shivers at the memory but continues. What scared me more though was the man hovering over her with his fist raised to land another one. I was lucky that he hadn't noticed me. I ran out of there so fast. My legs were moving before I could even fully comprehend what I just witnessed. It wasn't until I was miles away did I finally stop and let the shock wear off. Did it finally hit me that I was truly alone. What did you do after that? Hitoshi asks curiously. I was homeless for a few months, but luckily I ran into someone who helped set me on the right path. One day I was digging through the garbage when an old man who was walking home from the grocer's saw me and asked me if I needed help. The kind old man took pity on me and offered me a place to stay as long as I kept his home clean for him. It was a good deal, so of course I took it. Turned out he was an old retired villain-turned-priest from way long ago, so he taught me all of the martial arts that I know to this day. While living with him, I was able to get a job at a bar and save up enough money to buy my own apartment. So after 2 years of hard work, I left and he gave me his best wishes. She explains, while idly playing with the rosary necklace hanging around her neck. So how did you get into vigilantism, Aya-san? Izuku inquires. Hold on, Squirt, I'm getting there. She replies sternly, before continuing on with her story. The bar I worked at was really sketchy. Sometimes I would catch snippets of a villain's plan to commit a crime, then I would anonymously report them to the police. Sometimes policemen or pro-heroes would be dumb enough to reveal top secrets that were supposed to remain confidential. I became an information broker, technically. I dealt with both sides. With every piece of evidence I gave, I would be paid back with a thick wad of cash. With that money, I bought my own equipment and designed my own suit. Bam! Dragonfly was born. My first debut was when I was only 16 years old, she says with a slight hint of pride at her accomplishment. The obvious question lingering in the air is brought up by Hitoshi. So what happened? Why stop? He asks, both of them slightly dreading the answer. Her expression darkens as the memory flickers back to life. I was on patrol like normal. It was just your average Friday night. Lots of drunken fights happened. I was about to turn in for the night, but I heard someone scream and I went to go check it out. Turns out it was a villain who was being hunted down. From what I could tell, the guy was covered in nasty-looking burns and there was a lot of blood. The other person chasing them down was the number 2 hero, Endeavor. He was looming over the villain, ready to set them on fire again. For a split second, I saw my mother's face instead of the villain. So I shot a tranquilizer into him and I saw him hit the ground. That tranquilizer dart should have knocked him out for a good 10 minutes. I swooped down and helped the guy up to his feet. Turns out the guy was his own son, Todoroki Tuya. He was trying to run away from home. Turns out Endeavor is an abusive asshole. No surprise there though. I offered him help, but he denied it. Instead, he told me to share his story to the police so that they can arrest the bastard. I agreed and we were about to go our separate ways. But then, Endeavor woke up. Tuya ran off down another alley, and I took off to the skies. I thought I was safe, but Endeavor has a crazy long-ranged attack called. Izuku's face pales and his eyes widen. Flash fire fist? Yeah, that. Luckily his aim was off due to the drugs in his system, but he got my wings. I got caught and he was about to turn me in, but then I threatened to reveal his crime to the world and he let me go as an exchange to keep quiet. I stopped doing vigilantism after that. My boss was nice enough to sell me his bar since he was retiring anyways. I converted it into a coffee shop, and here we are now, I guess. She ends with an empty sigh. She takes a long drink from her now cold cup of hot cocoa until it is completely drained. Without another word, she quickly refills all of their cups and the two teenagers silently absorb the information bomb she had just dropped on them. Hitoshi appears to be lost in deep thought. Izuku appears to be numb in shock. Aya settles back down in her chair and patiently waits for them to say something. But really, what can you say? Sorry for your loss? After a few minutes pass, Izuku looks up so that they are eye to eye. I didn't know that heroes can be so cruel. He stammers with tears threatening to fall. All my life, I've looked up to heroes and now I don't know what to believe in. The barista looks down at the young boy before her and crosses her arms. Heroes are not gods. They're human just like everyone else. All humans are corrupt in some way or another. So it shouldn't be a surprise that there are corrupt heroes in this world. Just because someone claims to be a hero for beating up villains, doesn't mean they're necessarily a good person. Everybody has their vices. Izuku flinches at her harsh tone. Even All Might? She nods slowly. Even All Might? Izuku goes quiet after that and casts his gaze to the floor. Out of the blue, Hitoshi pipes up, I believe you. My parents were good people, until my villainous Quirk manifested. Then they became monsters. He says with a deep bitterness, glaring down at the floor in anger. Two hands plant themselves on top of their heads and begin gently ruffle their hair. Both of them look up, surprised at the thoughtful expression on their boss's face. One day, you guys will understand that there are no heroes or villains. Only people. I think that people have forgotten that we are all equally capable of having that power to do great good or great harm. The only question is how you choose to use it. Izuku can feel hot tears burning his eyes and Hitoshi swallows the lump forming in his throat as they both ask the question that has been denied to them all these years. Are you saying that we can really become heroes? The former vigilante stops ruffling their hair and retracts her hands so that she can cross her arms in front of her chest. Her eyebrows are crinkled together and her lips are pressed together into a thin line. You can practically see the gears turning in her head as she contemplates their question. Izuku and Hitoshi hold their breath for her answer. After a long minute of that felt more like an hour, Aya sighs and looks both of them in the eye with a seriousness that makes them squirm. Let's be realistic. I'm not the person you two should be asking that question. My opinion doesn't matter, and no one else's opinion should matter either. It's your life and your own power. No one on the earth is qualified to tell you whether you should become a hero or not. Therefore, you should be asking yourselves. Suddenly a smirk forms on her lips, but if you want to hear my thoughts on it, then yeah. I think you two got what it fucking takes. Izuku can't hold his tears back any longer and the dam breaks. Hitoshi, the less emotional one of the two, feels a wave of emotion that sucks the very breath out of him. This was the first time anyone believed in them and didn't just laugh like all of the others. This was the last time Izuku and Hitoshi let anyone else's judgment stop them from accomplishing their dream. The next day, Izuku woke up feeling absolutely exhausted from the emotional roller coaster they went on yesterday. He takes note of the empty sleeping bag beside him and comes to the conclusion that Hitoshi must have stayed up all night again. It was to be expected. His insomnia tends to be worse whenever he is stressed or has a lot of things on his mind. No doubt yesterday's events would have caused his insomnia to creep up on him again. Izuku stretches with a shallow yawn, feeling his joints pop from the stiffness that has overtaken his body. He slowly rises and opens the door to the hobo shack to search for his friend. Sure enough, he finds him sitting on top of a washing machine, facing the horizon where the swell of the dark sea meets the early morning gray of the sky. The sun hasn't risen yet, meaning they have at least a couple hours until they have to head to work. A cold sea breeze blows, causing Izuku to shiver in his hoodie. Hitoshi doesn't seem affected by the chilly air in the least. In fact, he is sitting so still that he put statues to shame. Despite his aloofness, Izuku can clearly see the conflicted feelings in his tired purple eyes. As Izuku approaches, Hitoshi doesn't turn his gaze away from the ocean. The sand muffles Izuku's footsteps, so he doesn't notice the presence of his friend until the last moment. When Izuku softly pats his arm, he jumps as though he were electrocuted and nearly topples off of the washing machine he's perched on with an unmanly shriek. This causes Izuku to hunch over, his body shaking with laughter. Hitoshi growls at his laughing friend and pulls himself back up. "Don't do that. I could have died," he shouts after righting himself, his face red with embarrassment as Izuku poorly tries to regain control himself. Sorry, but I didn't think you'd react so badly," Izuku says once he has regained his breath. Hitoshi pouts, not believing in the sincerity of that apology, but scoots over anyways to allow Izuku room to climb up and plop down next to him. Hitoshi raises a brow at his companion. "Why aren't you asleep? Why aren't you asleep?" Izuku retorts, which earns him an elbow in the stomach. "Dumb ass, I have chronic insomnia, remember?" Izuku wheezes, it's called sarcasm Hitoshi, before retaliating with a harsh flick to the nose, which was easily blocked. "Let's go back inside." He whines, "It's freezing, Toshi." Izuku then tries to be dramatic by clinging onto Hitoshi like a demented monkey. Hitoshi pushes him away with a frown. "Cut it out, man, I'm trying to watch the sunrise." It's an old habit of mine, and one of the small benefits of being an insomniac. This piece of info catches Izuku's interest. "Fine then, I'll watch with you. But if I catch a cold, I'm blaming you." Hitoshi shrugs nonchalantly. "Suit yourself." So they both huddle next to each other like two penguins trying to shield each other from the cold. For the next hour, they remained like that, cold and unmoving as though they were in their own little world. The dark waves beat the shore in tandem with each breath of salty air. Izuku feels his eyelids getting heavy, but at the same time he doesn't want to sleep. Hitoshi doesn't fail to notice his friend's drowsiness, so he decides to break the peaceful silence to keep his friend awake. "I've been thinking about what happened yesterday," Hitoshi comments quietly. "Same here," Izuku admits as well. "It doubly shocking and enlightening." The teenager sighs and runs a hand through his curly hair. "More like what she said, it gave me hope. I still remember the day I was diagnosed as Quirkless. When I asked my mom if I could still become a hero, she said, 'I'm sorry, Izuku.' But that wasn't what I wanted to hear. Even at the orphanage everyone called me useless, and I lost that hope. No one has ever told me that I can do it. And now I just feel so restless." Izuku chews his bottom lip and turns to face his friend, and the spark of conviction in his viridian eyes takes Hitoshi's breath away. "I want to do something, Hitoshi. I want to show the world that I'm not just some useless Deku and that I can become a hero even without a quirk." As if on cue, the sun peaks above the horizon, breaking through the gray fog and casting an ethereal glow upon the sky above their heads like a shining halo of light. Hitoshi snaps out of his stupor and a rare smile lifts the corners of his mouth. "I want to do the same. I want to prove to the world that I'm not the villain they predetermined me to be, even with a quirk like mine." The sun fully rises and the chill in the air is swiftly chased away by the soothing rays shining upon them. "Then we'll show the world what a couple of reckless idiots like us can do." "No. Please, Aya-san. No. Please. No. Please. No. I am not going to train you guys just so you both can get yourselves killed," the barista says with a firm voice as she concentrates on rolling out the sugar cookie dough. "But the answer is no," she says with finality. The bolder of the two slams his palms upon the table, causing their boss to pause in her work and shoot him a glare, but he doesn't waver under her gaze and says, "We've already made up our minds to become vigilantes. And we're going to do it, with or without training. You're the only person who can train us, and you know it. So you have a choice right now. Train us so that we at least stand a fighting chance. Or let us fend for ourselves and learn to fight on our own." A smirk crosses her face. "Okay. How about this instead?" Thump. Crack. Before either of them could blink, she had grabbed the front of Hitoshi's hoodie and slammed his face onto the work table, causing him to yell out in pain and clutch his possibly broken nose. Both boys stare at their boss in shock at the sudden act of violence. She, however, looks completely calm as ever and nonchalantly crosses her arms in front of her chest. "How about, you two don't come around my kitchen making your own demands like you own the damn place?" she says coldly, before returning her attention to the sugar cookie dough. Hitoshi mutters a curse and stumbles off to find some tissues to stem the blood flow. Izuku gulps and stutters, "Why won't you teach us, Aya-san? We've explained our reasons why we want to do this, and we're willing to work hard for our goal. Just want to save people and prove society wrong. We're not doing it for fame or even money." The barista lets out a heavy sigh and rubs her throbbing temples. "That's not the point, brat. I don't want you guys to make the same mistakes I made. Look where being a vigilante got me. It nearly got me killed. Why in the ever-loving fuck would I want to encourage two squirts to go down that path? It's suicidal. Then teach us how to avoid those mistakes." Izuku blurts out in pure frustration, surprising both himself and his boss. After the initial shock wears off, he takes a deep breath before shrinking into himself in embarrassment and bashfully adding a timid, "Please." Aya grumbles something under her breath as she cuts out the dough into small round circles. "I'll think about it." She relents finally. Izuku lets out a sigh of relief and smiles. Won't let you down." This only earns him a sharp flick to the forehead. "I haven't promised anything yet, brat. Now get to work. I don't pay you guys to annoy me to death with your nonsense." His boss orders sternly. "Yes, Aya-san. And make sure the napkins are fucking restocked." "Yes, Aya-san. And count the money in the cash register." "Yes, Aya-san." Izuku nearly runs into Hitoshi on his way out. His friend has an eerily accurate facial expression that reminds Izuku of those grumpy cat memes from ye old pre-Quirk era. A hilariously fat wad of tissue is crammed up one nostril with a little bit of dark red seeping out. "You okay, Toshi?" he asks, even though the obvious answer is glaringly clear that no, Toshi is definitely not okay. Hitoshi grumbles something under his breath about crazy ex-vigilantes and not getting paid enough to deal with this shit. And ain't that a mood? People would never guess that the hot-headed barista who owns a coffee shop that looks like a bar is a deeply religious person in faith. However, you would never ever catch her dead in some Praise Mother Mary's happy clappy church. Fuck no. Most would argue that not going to church on Sundays is a sin, and if anyone were to point out this small fact to Aya, she would 1. Hit you over the head with her rolling pin. 2. Dig the heel of her boot into your groin until you beg for mercy. 3. Tell you to stuff that bull crap up your $% and asterisk at $. Simply put, Aya had faith and that's all she believed she needed. So why is she in a church of all places? Here's why. The apprehensive 20-something-year-old scowls as she lingers in the back of the church, patiently waiting for the late-night Wednesday Bible study group to cut the kumbaya bull crap and go home already. After the last wrinkly old couple leaves, she slowly approaches the priest with her eyes to the ground and her hands stuffed deep in her pockets. The old man hasn't changed much since the last time she saw him. He still has that stupid afro, although almost all of his hair is white now instead of the bright green it used to be. Poking out from the hazardous curls are flowers with many different varieties in different stages of growth. Some of them are withering away while some are just budding. No doubt a part of his quirk. His stupidly huge mustache is still there, and it still looks like a fucking caterpillar. Nothing new there. The only noticeable addition is the pair of glasses resting on the bridge of his nose, magnifying the crow's feet at the corners of his warm brown eyes. Because of her ingrained vigilante skills, he doesn't hear her nearly silent footsteps and doesn't notice her presence until she is practically hovering directly behind him. "What's up, old man?" she grumbles with a scowl. The elderly priest jumps and spins around to face his opponent with his cane raised, poised to strike. Aya grabs the cane before he could swing down. "Hold your horses, old man, it's just me," she says before releasing the cane. The old man adjusts his owlish glasses and breaks into a toothless grin. "Oh well, this is certainly a surprise. How you doing, June Bug?" Aya's scowl deepens at the old nickname. "It's Dragonfly, old man." "Dragon? Fly. I'll stop when you give me the same respect, brat. I'm not that old yet. You're fucking over 90 years old, Shiozaki-sensei. She deadpants. This earns her a wheezy chuckle and a cane to the foot. She did not yelp. Yeah, so what brings you back to visit your old sensei? He asks with a raised brow. I need some advice about something. Both fuzzy brows shoot up in surprise. Advice on what? Brats. She answers vaguely. He breaks out into a gleeful smile and shouts in joy, You're pregnant? Her eyebrow twitches, and hell no. What the fuck, old man? I'm talking about the two stupid kids I hired for my cafe. Shiozaki slumps in disappointment. Dang it. I wanted to become a grandpa. You are a grandpa. Don't you have a granddaughter? Yeah. But I want more grandkids. An old man gets lonely around this place, you know. Well, don't keep your hopes up 'cause I'm never having kids. I grumble. A priest like me can only pray, you know. He says jokingly before turning serious. So you need help with these two kids you hired? The student sighs. It's a long story, Shiozaki-sensei. The master smiles. Come to the back and I'll fix us some tea then. So they spent the next couple of hours in Shiozaki's warm kitchen as Aya retells him everything that has occurred in the past month or so. Her sensei listens intently without interrupting once during the entire story. By the time her story ends, the full moon is high in the sky and the tea in their cups have gone cold. Shiozaki-sensei takes a sip from his cup, cringes, and gets up to reheat the teapot. So what do you want me to say? He inquires with his back turned to his student, while his hands work the stove. Aya's brows shoot up in surprise, not expecting her sensei's blunt response. Huh? He returns to the table and pours the newly reheated tea into their cups. I think you already know the answer, Junebug. I don't know why you came all the way here to visit me. It seems you've already made up your mind about the matter. I was lucky that I only lost my wings that night. How can I purposefully put two kids in danger? She tries to reason. So, train them. It seems clear to me that these two crazy kids are gonna do it with or without your help. So would you rather have them jump in with training or without training? The old priest argues back. Aya opens her mouth to retort, but the old man beats her to the point. I trained you so that you could defend yourself. How is that different than what these two boys want from you? Aya closes her mouth and sinks further into her chair, arms crossed across her chest. Her master smiles, forming wrinkly dimples on each cheek. Ian, I'm sure there's a very good reason why these two boys happen to be dumped on your doorstep. Just trust your instincts and be faithful. I know. Aya finishes, having heard this lecture a countless number of times. She stands up from her seat and bows. Thanks for the tea, old man. Shiozaki-sensei grins and gets up to see his guest out. Of course. A teacher should always be there for their student, you know. The next morning, Izuku and Hitoshi walked into the lounge at 5 o'clock, expecting another normal day of work. What they didn't expect, however, was to be jumped the moment they walked inside by their, possibly insane, boss. The ex-vigilante flashes a manic grin before she spins a kick into Hitoshi's gut, then vaults a solid punch into Izuku's diaphragm. After both of them are on the ground, clutching their midsections in pain, Aya tisks and crosses her arms across her chest. All right, brats, that was lesson number 1, blocking. Right now, I'm going to teach you how to properly block. From now on, you both will be randomly ambushed throughout the day and you will be expected to react accordingly until blocking becomes second nature. Understand? She instructs in a serious tone. Both of them sit up and stare at each other with wide eyes. Izuku turns to his boss. Does that mean you're gonna train us to become vigilantes? He asks in slight disbelief, as though all of his wishes were suddenly granted. His boss, now sensei, scowls. We're wasting time. Get the fuck off my floors or else you're not learning anything today. She threatens, although it was no bite to it. Nevertheless, Izuku and Hitoshi scramble onto their feet and dust themselves off. Alright, Aya drops into a defensive position. This is blocking 101, so pay attention and maybe you'll live to see tomorrow. This is the training montage provided by your loving author. You're welcome. Have fun reading. It's essentially just crack and humor and pain. Day 1. To say they are sore is the understatement of the century. Izuku lets out a groan as he attempts to sit up, only to flop back down like a drunk starfish. Hitoshi lays beside him in a similar state. He doesn't even bother to make an attempt. I feel like we got ambushed by all of the kindergartners in the city, with all of them on sugar highs, and they jumped on us as though we were a bouncy house while wearing 12-inch stilettos. Hitoshi mumbles, loud enough for Izuku to hear. The other teen snorts, Hitoshi, how would the kindergartners even wear the stilettos? Hitoshi grunts weakly, not the point Izu. Izuku slowly sits up and makes a noise akin to a strangled cat as he forces himself to stand up on his two legs. Pain ripples through his entire torso as he stumbles over a stray beer bottle while walking over to a nearby mirror. He lifts his sweatshirt and winces from the motion, then cringes when he sees the dark purple blooming across his embarrassingly pale skin. "Pikes," is all he says before letting the sweatshirt drop. About 15 minutes later, while Izuku is failing at taming his wild curls, Hitoshi gets up as well, hissing and griping in pain. "Izuku, you might have to carry me." Hitoshi whines as he drags himself over to Izuku and drapes himself over the admittedly much shorter boy like a wet towel. "Get off, Toshi." Izuku shoves him off and he lets himself fall to the floor. Hitoshi rolls over onto his back and stares blankly up at the sky with a solid deadpan expression. "This is my new home. I have become one with the floor." Izuku ends up bribing him with coffee and painkillers so that they could finally go to work. The moment they crawl through the door, boom, their boss abuser attacks explosively with a series of wild jabs and punches that they barely fend off with stiff blocks and slow dodges. Hitoshi and Izuku find themselves face down on the floor in less than a minute, literally. Their teacher abuser casually stands up, removing her knees from their kidneys, and shoves a stopwatch in their faces. 32 seconds. More than double of yesterday's record. "Looking good, brats," she compliments before helping them off the floor. Tired violet eyes glare at her as he rubs the new sore spot on his back. "How long is this ambushing going to last?" he gripes. She lets out a mockingly cheerful hum before replying, "Until you can hold your own against me for, oh I don't know, 3 minutes?" Hitoshi and Izuku blanch. Viridian eyes twitch. 3 minutes? "You up?" she drawls, popping the P. Day 5. Izuku nervously glances around the corner, making sure the coast is clear to grab the mop from the supply closet. After a minute of silence, he judges the coast is clear and makes a mad dash for the mop and bucket. However, out of nowhere comes his boss, with a flying kick aimed right for his face. "Why?" Before his lips can kiss the underside of her boots, he quickly swings open the closet door, turning it into a shield to block it. "Ah!" he cries triumphantly, but his victory is cut short when she swiftly retaliates by grabbing the opposite side of the closet door handle and slamming it back into his face, so in the end he ended up with a bloody nose anyways. "A door swings both ways," she quickly lectures, before running off to find Hitoshi. Izuku weakly chuckles and groans in response, "So do I." In less than 5 minutes Hitoshi ends up joining him in his misery. Day 10. Aya smirks when Hitoshi slowly turns around from his workstation. She defeats him relatively quickly. But at least he is improving his situational awareness. Izuku is also doing much better than yesterday. This time his movements are less panicked and less jerky. You can easily see the muscle memory being built with each smooth block. They manage to last about a minute each. But, why? Hitoshi says dramatically from the floor. "Mother trucker dude, that hurt like a butt cheek on a stick." Izuku replies from where he was perched at the kitchen island, while casually holding a bag of frozen peas to his bruised cheek. "If you guys from the energy to reference ancient vines, you guys can get up and mop," Aya says from the front counter, glaring at them through the service window. "Also, we need a croissant up in here." Hitoshi grabs a fresh croissant from the oven and is bringing it up to the service window, when he almost trips over Izuku's overstretched feet. Stop. I coulda dropped my croissant," he jokes, causing Izuku to snort at the quip. A vein pops out from Aya's forehead and the customer backs away in fear of the aura that promised pain and suffering coming from the barista. "Where is that fucking croissant?" she roars impatiently. Hitoshi pales, then quickly hands his boss the baked good. Aya huffs and gripes, "Fucking brats," shooting them all a warning glare through the window. Then she takes it and gives it to the waiting customer with a muttered apology under her breath. The customer thanks her, pauses, then a playful smirk forms on her lips. "Watch yo profanity," she quips, leaving a stunned barista standing behind the bar with the most done-looking expression on her face. Day 15. Hitoshi is busy cutting out Christmas tree shapes from a sheet of sugar cookie dough and laying them out onto the baking tray. Suddenly, he feels tingles on the back of his neck. Someone is sneaking up on him, getting prepared to strike. There's a creak on the floorboard behind him and he spins around, catching the fist swung at his face before sliding to the left to avoid a knee to the groin. He parries each strike with smooth blocking movements, one bleeding into the other. His attacker doesn't let up for even a moment, giving him no chance to find an opening and strike back. His eyes land on the bag of flour sitting on the kitchen island and he has a light bulb moment. "Why?" Hitoshi gasps, before chucking a small handful of flour directly into her face. Then, he lands a strong kick directly into her gut. She lets out a hacking cough. "Bitch?" She snarls, while blinking rapidly to clear her vision. Aya's eyes widen and she barely manages to catch the fist sloppily swung at her throat, before tackling the boy into the ground. After letting him up, she grins and comments, "Not bad, kid. Not bad at all." Hitoshi beams from the praise. A few minutes later, Izuku makes some impressive usage of the broom in his hands to block her strikes. He also manages to squeeze in a clip to her shoulder before she was able to steal the broom and pin him to the ground. Aya goes home with 2 fresh bruises that day, and she's never been prouder. Day 20. The grumpy barista opens her office door, only to be ambushed by her own 2 students. The shorter one drops and tries to go for her legs to trip her up, while the taller one brings on a flurry of punches. She mutters a curse under her breath before retaliating with her own set of moves. This fight seems to go on forever and soon the boys' movements grow sluggish as they run out of stamina. Somewhere along the line they messed up, leaving an opening, which their boss swiftly exploited, leaving them sprawling on the floor in a messy heap of sweaty limps. Their boss wipes the sweat off her brow and smiles, before flashing them the stopwatch around her neck. 3 minutes and 4 seconds. She proclaims, a proud smile on her face. And purple eyes stare at each other in shock before they both start to celebrate right there on the floor. It's been about a week since they've passed Aya-san's hell test. This morning, when they came in for work, their boss told them to stay after their late afternoon shift ended. When they asked why, she simply gave them a feral grin and told them it was a surprise. Chills ran down their spines and they briefly checked their memory banks to see if they had done anything to piss her off lately. "You open it?" Hitoshi says. "No, you open it." Izuku protests. "No, I insist. A handsome man as yourself should get first dibs." "Oh no. Insomniac's first, my good man." Hitoshi sighs. "Okay, fine, let's both open it." They both poke their heads inside the cramped office, and their eyes go wide at the sight of the open closet. The secret door is left wide open, screaming suspicion. Curious, they both carefully make sure to lock the office door behind them, before quietly sneaking down into the secret base with Izuku leading the way. When they reach the bottom of the stairs, their eyes widen to comical proportions and their jaws drop to the floor. Standing in the middle of the room is their teacher in all of her vigilante glory. She is dressed in the armored black bodysuit that was previously hung up in the display case. On her feet are a pair of steel-toed black combat boots. Her bright red bandana is gone, revealing 2 sleek antennas poking out of her neon hair. But what really stunned them were the 2 nearly identical outfits displayed beside her. Like her suit, it appears to be made out of the same armored material. But the color of the accented technical designs on the suit are different. While Aya's is colored metallic gold here and there, Izuku's is a tasteful forest green and Hitoshi's is a pleasing purple. Obviously to match their eyes. There's a bright flash of light and both of them blink out of their stupor. They blanked out so hard that they didn't even notice Aya taking a photo of their dumb expressions. "You guys should see the look on your faces," she teases. Izuku gives her a wobbly smile and his eyes tear up with overwhelming happiness. "You got us vigilante suits." Just like yours. Hitoshi is less of an emotional train wreck like Izuku, but he wouldn't bother to deny that he got a little choked up. Their teacher carefully sets down the camera on her desk and covers the distance between them in 4 strides. She pulls the two into a hug, each boy under one arm. Tonight I'm going to take you two on your first patrol to show you the ropes. After that though, you're on your own. I gave up vigilantism a long time ago, but that doesn't give me the right to stop you guys from choosing your own path. I am so fucking proud of the two of you, she says, heartfelt pride swelling in her chest and ringing clear in her voice. Then she releases them from her hug/chokehold and drags them over to their suits. What are you two fucking waiting for? Put 'em on. They didn't need to be told twice. When they finished, Aya lets out a low whistle of approval. Looking good, boys. She compliments. Izuku and Hitoshi look over at each other and they have the same impression. They look dangerous. Aya then smirks and strides over to the back wall. She hovers over the various deadly weapons displayed, before grabbing a few select items from the collection. To their surprise, she abruptly shoves the various weapons into their arms. Izuku stares down the equipment in his arms as he mentally lists them off: grappling hook for mobility, bow staff for defense and offense, and a set of goggles for tracking. Hitoshi also received the grappling hook and goggles. Except instead of a bow staff, he got a pair of bulky gloves and 3 separate containers. Each container is filled to the brim with small balls, separated by color: red, green, and yellow. Both of you need to wear the goggles on your face. I'll show you how that functions later. Then you also need to attach those grappling hooks to your belts. Izuku, sling that bow staff to your back like how you would wear a backpack. Hitoshi, put on the electroshock gloves and attach those containers to your belt as well. Aya instructs sternly. Izuku and Hitoshi scramble to follow her orders, not wanting to blow this chance at going out on their first patrol. In their hurry, Izuku accidentally whacks the back of Hitoshi's head with his staff and Hitoshi accidentally slaps his arm with his gloved hand, which causes Izuku to spaz out from the rush of electricity. Don't electrocute each other, she scolds. Izuku desperately tries to keep up with his friend and his mentor as they parkour through the city landscape with only the moon's light to guide their way. Unfortunately for him, his legs a little shorter, so making long jumps from roof to roof is a challenge. He grits his teeth as he makes another precarious leap, only to barely make it to the other ledge. He lets out a yelp as he loses his balance, his arms flailing to cling to the edge of the roof. However, Aya is there to catch him before he can go splat on the pavement like an overripe tomato. Watch your step, brat. I don't want you going splat on the fucking sidewalk. She scolds lightly while pulling him back up onto the roof. Hitoshi playfully snickers at his friend's predicament and Izuku's cheeks turn pink from embarrassment. Why yes, Dragonfly. Dragonfly bends down and scrutinizes Izuku's boots. Remind me when we get back to modify your boots somehow so that you can jump farther. Izuku nods and reflects. Maybe we can just make them lighter? They're pretty heavy. That's not a bad idea, kiddo. Good point, she says before addressing both of them. Okay? That was parkour 101. Now I'm going to show you guys how to use the equipment I gave you. She takes off her goggles and shows them how to switch it from normal vision to night vision to heat vision and then back to normal vision. Then she shows Izuku how to collapse his bow staff, which transforms it from being 5 feet long to only a single foot. Additionally, there's a taser option to the staff that could be activated with a single push of a button. Then, she shows Hitoshi how to use the electroshock gauntlets efficiently and shows him what each colored ball does by using the thugs they ran into throughout their patrol as test dummies. All of them are pretty harmless distractions that could be used for quick getaways. The red-colored balls will release a pink-colored sleeping gas. Yes, she admitted that the idea came from the pro hero Midnight. The green-colored balls release a dense, dark green smoke that also happens to smell like fresh dog shit. Aya's words, not his. The yellow balls are ordinary flashbangs, specifically made for one pro hero who shall not be named. Their first night as vigilantes was relatively peaceful. Hitoshi muses when they return to the cafe at 2 a.m. with nothing more than a few bruises. Other than stopping a late-night robbery and stopping a couple of drunks from douching it out, nothing major happened. Of course, their sensei casually warns that patrol nights won't always be this quiet. But nothing really major happens at night, right? You don't have to face really flashy villains that could level entire city blocks in the middle of the night, right? Besides, the chances of getting caught by heroes are lower because most of them are sleeping at night, right? Oh, how the universe loved to prove Hitoshi wrong. Like a cat, Izuku gracefully leaps through the air and lands in a crouch on the rooftop below. Now with his boot enhancements, rooftop hopping became a breeze. Hitoshi insists it's cheating, but Izuku retorts back that having long legs is cheating as well. His sleepy-eyed friend had no comeback. He pulls out the walkie-talkie from his belt and presses the talks button. "This is Green. I'm about 5 clicks east from the base. Over." A few seconds later, static crackles and Hitoshi replies, "Roger that." "This is Purple. I'm 5 clicks west from the base. Any activity on your end? Over." Izuku opens his mouth to reply, but an agonizing wail echoes through the night and Izuku is immediately on high alert. He turns on heat vision and scans the area around him. Down the street, he sees a shorter figure dragging a much taller figure into an alley. Izuku raises the walkie to his lips and reports, "Suspected mugging in an alley. Okay, be careful." His partner in crime vigilantism warns. "Yes, mo." Izuku jibes before tucking away the walkie. He shoots his grappling hook onto a streetlight near the alley and swings into the scene, landing with a nearly silent roll. "Who's there?" A female voice calls out in alarm. Izuku stands up, ready to confront the attacker, but he goes still when his brain registers the event taking place in front of him. A teenage girl is standing over another man's body with a bloodied kitchen knife in her right hand. The man is propped up against the wall, bleeding from several cuts varying in size along his arms, face, and upper torso. Izuku prays to whatever deity is listening that the poor man isn't already dead. The girl is fondling the knife in her hand a little too sweetly, her blushing smile is a little too wide, and her eyes remind Izuku too much of a cat taking delight in its latest catch. If it weren't for these little observations, Izuku would have assumed that this was a case of self-defense against a potential attack. But no, this deceivingly sweet, blushing girl is the attacker and Izuku doesn't like how she's just staring at him with those hungry eyes and lovesick smile. "Wow, you're pretty cute," she says out of the blue, startling Izuku. The vigilante clears his throat and replies, Thanks? What are you doing to that man, miss?" "Toga Himiko. Nice to meet ya." And as for him, she gestures to the unconscious victim at her feet. "Don't worry. Just a little blood loss. He'll be fine." Izuku says oh so intelligently in response. Well, at least he knows that the victim's not dead. So that's a good thing. It doesn't seem like she wants to kill him. What's her purpose for doing this? Should he try and capture her? Should he help the victim? Should he call for backup? He doesn't even get the chance to do any of these things because before he knew it, her face is hovering closely to his and the tip of her knife is gently pressing over where his carotid artery lies underneath the tender flesh of his neck. Izuku lets out a strangled yelp and this only causes the very sharp blade to draw a small speck of blood. Now that she is so uncomfortably close to him, he can visibly see the cat-like pupils of her eyes dilate as the bead of blood slowly travels down the curve of his neck, leaving behind a trail of red. Oh dear God, what has he gotten himself into? The girl's face is hovering closely to his and the tip of her knife is gently pressing over where his carotid artery lies underneath the tender flesh of his neck. Izuku lets out a strangled yelp and this only causes the very sharp blade to draw a small speck of blood. Now that she is so uncomfortably close to him, he can visibly see the cat-like pupils of her eyes dilate as the bead of blood slowly travels down the curve of his neck, leaving behind a trail of red. Somehow, in that moment, his brain starts to work again. While she is distracted, he pulls out his walkie-talkie from his belt and presses the big red button Aya told them to press if things ever went south on one of their patrols. She never explained what would happen if they were to press it, but Izuku trusts his teacher with his life. Therefore he pressed it without any hesitation, fully expecting it to turn into a bomb or something. So when nothing happened, he was perhaps more than just a little disappointed. Unfortunately, the movement of his arms seemed to snap the crazy girl out of whatever lucid daydream she was having. Her smile drops and her expression turns dark, The sudden 180 degrees spin in her personality gives Izuku whiplash. "What did you just do, Vigilante-kun?" she says sweetly, but this time her voice is laced with a sour note that definitely wasn't there before. Izuku holds his breath and sends a prayer to whatever deity is listening that his half-cocked plan works. He masks his unease with a confident smirk and pulls the walkie-talkie out from his belt to show it off. "You see the big red button on the side of this device? Push it once, it becomes a bomb." He then rests his thumb over the button. "Push it twice, it will go boom. All I have to do is press this button and our corpses will be strewn across the pavement. So I suggest you let me go." "No. You're bluffing. Want to see me press it and find out?" The girl freezes and narrows her eyes with suspicion, then slowly lowers her knife and takes a cautious step back. Izuku struggles to contain his surprise. "Holy shit! That actually worked?" The man in the alleyway groans for help and Izuku is half tempted to check on him, but he can't afford to take his eyes off of the girl in front of him. Izuku takes a deep breath to steel his nerves. "I'm going to ask again. What were you going to do to that man?" he asks, this time a bit more forcefully. She grins and cheerfully answers, "I was just going to take a little bit of his blood, silly." As if that explained everything or anything. "Okay? But why?" Then, Toga did something completely unexpected. She licked the drop of Izuku's blood off of the tip of the blade, and within seconds Izuku is staring at his own doppelganger. Granted, his doppelganger is blushing like crazy and smiling way too wide. He cannot even describe how weird it is to be staring at yourself, while also knowing that the person in front of you has the potential of killing you in cold blood. Fuck, Izuku is definitely going to need therapy after this. She, or he, opens his mouth and explains, "My quirk involves me ingesting blood in order for it to work, so blood is just really tasty to me. I love drinking blood. But nobody seemed to understand, so I ran away so that I can break out of society's chains and be free to live as I want. After all, is it a crime to satisfy my quirk's needs? Well, no, but then why do people treat me like I'm some sort of freak for liking blood? Why does this society have to be so horrible to people like me? Why should I have to follow their normal? Why can't I be free to choose?" She shouts at the top of her lungs, before letting out a crazed laugh. "But you already understand where I'm coming from, right, Vigilante-kun? You've seen how wrong society is, right, Vigilante-kun?" She releases her quirk, letting Izuku freezes, and his brain stutters to a halt. "She reminds me of Toshi," is the only thought that runs through his mind after listening to her story. Ostracized for a villainous quirk. Ran away to find acceptance. Hateful towards the society that ruined everything for them. For a split second, Izuku could see his dearest friend standing in front of him wielding a knife with murder gleaming in his eyes in place of the girl before him. What if I had never met Toshi? Thwip, thwip, thwip. Out of nowhere, 3 darts fly through the air and plunge themselves into Toga's neck. Her face goes blank with shock and her eyes roll back into her skull, then her body crumbles to the floor. Izuku stares at her limp body and screams like a little bitch. She's dead. Someone lands behind him. "Chill out, she's still alive, brat." Izuku spins around and nearly sinks into a puddle of relief. "Sensei, you came?" She snorts, "Of fucking course I did. How did you know where to find me?" That red button on the walkie releases a distress signal. It sends me your immediate location through a text, then I suit up, and boom. "I'm here to save your sorry ass from getting killed," she explains while checking on the victim in the alley. "He needs to get to the hospital. These cuts aren't fatal, but they're deep. If he doesn't get help soon, he could die." She pulls out her phone and dials for an ambulance. "Help is coming. He should be okay." Izuku's gaze wanders back to the unconscious girl. "What about her? Is her? We're gonna need to take her back so that I can give her the antidote." He blanches and turns to his teacher. "Antidote? Sensei, what did those darts inject into her?" "A poison of my own creation. She'll only die if she doesn't get the antidote within the next hour or so." "What the hell, Sensei?" That's how Toga ended up at the lounge on Christmas morning. Aya laid her body on the kitchen table and told Izuku to keep watch while she went downstairs to get the antidote. Izuku agrees, but truthfully he does not want to be left alone with the crazy girl who was so close to slicing open his carotid artery and drinking his blood. He grabs one of the chairs at the kitchen table and drags it so that he is sitting directly in front of the back door, just in case she would try to escape. As he watches her sleep, yes, that sounds horribly creepy and stalkerish, but that's not his intention. He realizes that she's only wearing a simple high school uniform in the freaking middle of winter. What is she doing on the snowbank streets of Mizudafu in nothing but a high school uniform? With this realization, Izuku deduces that she is likely a homeless runaway, not unlike Hitoshi and himself. Coincidentally, that's when Hitoshi chooses to return from his very uneventful patrol. When Hitoshi enters the kitchen, the last thing he expected to see is an unconscious teenage girl laid out on top of their kitchen table and his friend sitting as far away from her as possible. His green-eyed friend perks up immediately the moment he steps into the room. Toshi. He leaps up from his seat and pulls the taller teen into a suffocating hug. Oh my gosh, finally, Hiriwaso freaking scaretishi thought I was going to fucking diawashal that and fepoint beauty somehow managed to trick Heron to thinking Sam just into me to say vemabana gone sense getting the antidote. Holy shit, Izuku, breathe. I've told you how many times already that I can't understand a word you're saying when you go on a mumbling rampage. Izuku takes several deep breaths before finally combusting into tears. Naturally, this causes Hitoshi to freak out. Whoa, okay Izuku, clam down. Just, get snot all over my new vigilante suit. Perfect. Please try to calm down and tell me what happened. So Izuku did, and Hitoshi doesn't know how to feel about nearly/unknowingly losing his best friend to a psychopath. About 5 minutes later, their teacher came back in with a syringe and swiftly injected it into the girl's arm. The antidote will start kicking in, but it'll be a few hours until she wakes up. She'll be okay, but when she wakes up she'll be very drowsy and lethargic. So you guys don't have to worry about her trying to escape. She says. What do we do now? Izuku asks. I'm going to make some hot cocoa for you guys, and a mug of bourbon-infused coffee for myself. She replies before leaving to do just that. I thought you were against drinking. Izuku shouts, loud enough for her to hear through the delivery window. Well, sometimes the aspirin doesn't cut it, kid. She hollers in return, before returning with a tray of steaming mugs. After handing the boys their mugs of cocoa, Aya situates herself at the kitchen counter and takes a long drink from her mug. You know, her case isn't that unusual. Quirks that involve blood are known to give the user some vampiric traits, such as elongated canines and making them crave blood. Izuku brightens, like the blood hero, Vlad King. Exactly. Hitoshi scowls. Yeah, but that doesn't excuse her trying to stab my friend. She's a villain. We should have turned her into the cops. He grumbles. Aya sighs and explains, be a little understanding, kid. Try to think of it this way. It's like an addiction. Her actions stem from forcefully rejecting a vital part of her quirk for years. Then, at some point, she probably snapped and attacked someone. And now that she got a taste of satisfying that craving, she's hooked and will do anything she can to satisfy it. Izuku glances over at the unconscious girl and asks, so, when she wakes up, will she still be all blood crazy? All people with blood-related quirks are blood crazy, but they usually are taught at a young age to find alternatives to satisfy their quirk. If they're not, well, she gestures to Toga, this is the result. Aya's expression turns stern. I guess what I'm trying to say is that this girl isn't a villain. I've put countless villains in jail over the years. Trust me, she's not like them. She's like us. Himiko wakes up in a warm kitchen, not a filthy alleyway, not a cold jail cell. Her sharp nose picks up on coffee and cookies. Is she in a bakery? She finds herself curled up on top of a kitchen table, wrapped in a nice quilt. 3 people are talking, their voices are still a little bit fuzzy in her head. From what she could tell in her muddled state, it's 2 males and 1 older female. Where is she? Poor they. What do they want with her? Why does she feel sick? What did they inject her with? Panic rises in her throat. She's seen what drugs do to people firsthand. Living on the streets exposes you to all kinds of horrors no 14-year-old should ever have to experience. She has seen too many people go to insane lengths to get their next high. Although, She must admit that she herself ain't much better with her cravings. The difference is that once she fulfills her craving, she can resist the urges for blood at the maximum of a week. Drugs are worse. Once you get hit, you're stuck on it forever in an endless loop of highs and lows that will ultimately end in your body rotting somewhere in a ditch. In her peripheral, she sees a back door. She tosses off the blanket and rolls off the table. In the haze of her delirium, she can hear a voice shout something at her. When her feet hit the ground, her knees buckle under her weight and she barely manages to catch herself on her knees and hands. In a final act of desperation, she starts crawling on all fours to the door, but this proves to be futile. All of this happens in a blur. Hitoshi is the one to body tackle her and haul the kicking and screaming girl back onto the kitchen table. Izuku then helps his friend hold down her legs, while Hitoshi holds down her arms. Even in her dazed state, she is still freakishly strong, despite her petite and malnourished appearance. Aya pulls out another sedative and carefully injects it into her arm. The girl immediately goes quiet and falls back asleep. Everybody lets out a sigh of relief and they release her limbs. Aya picks up the quilt from the floor and covers the girl once more. She wasn't supposed to wake up until tonight? Their teacher explains, I've never seen anyone wake up this early before. Izuku stares down at the now peaceful girl with pity. She looked so scared while we were holding her down. I don't think she knows that we're just trying to help her. She'll be more alert and coherent once she awakes. So next time, be on guard. She instructs, her voice deadly serious. Hi. Knock knock knock. All of their heads whip towards the back door and pale. Who the fuck can that be at 5 a.m.? Aya points to the body on the table and whispers, both of you, take her downstairs. Now. But what if she wakes up? Hitoshi whispers back. That sedative is meant to last for at least 3 hours, she'll be fine. Now fucking go. She whispers, slightly more agitated. The girl is light enough for Hitoshi to carry her alone. Izuku helps him out the door and traverse down the steep staircase to their secret lair. Once they got down the staircase, they gently lay her down on the new couch and anxiously wait for their sensei to give them the all clear. Aya waits a couple of minutes until she's sure that they're safe, before she opens the door. What are you fucking doing here, you damn hobo? Aya growls. The pro-hero Eraserhead rolls his bloodshot eyes. Can I come in? He asks, even though they both know it's not a request. It's a demand. Aya steps aside and he enters the kitchen. His keen eyes are immediately drawn to the quilt that was left behind on the table. Surprisingly, he doesn't comment upon it. His eyes then flicker over to the 3 abandoned mugs on the kitchen counter with steam rising off of them. Surprisingly, he doesn't say anything about them either. The barista keeps him in her line of sight as she makes her way over to the kitchen counter, discreetly positioning her body to block the 3 mugs. This action obviously doesn't go unnoticed by the pro, but he doesn't call her out and simply slides into a stool at the kitchen table. Cut to the chase. Why are you here, Eraserhead? She asks, leaning against the kitchen counter with her arms crossed. The hero digs into his pockets and pulls out 3 familiar Senbon needles. You forgot these at the scene, he says before placing them on the table. Aya's eyebrow twitches. How are you so sure they were mine? I was on your case for years, Dragonfly. While you hardly ever had to resort to it, you showed a rare talent in the arts of poison. He replies in a deadpan tone, as if it were something so obvious. Her eyes narrow with suspicion. You never answered my question. Here? She reiterates in a low and dangerous tone, a sad attempt to change the direction of the conversation. His gaze hardens. I'm here to ask you questions, and if you answer all of them truthfully, I won't feel obligated as a pro-hero to go to the police and report this incident. He answers, cold and blunt. Well, double fuck. Aya lets out a deep sigh and hangs her head in defeat. Wait here, I'll make some extra strong coffee for the both of us, she declares before heading out to the front to do just that. Do you think Aya-sensei is in trouble? Izuku whispers quietly to Hitoshi. Since Himiko is hogging up the couch, Izuku is sitting in Aya's desk chair and Hitoshi is comfortably stretched out on his throne of supply boxes. The violet-eyed teen yawns and leans into a stretch. She'll be fine. She wouldn't have sent us out for no reason. If we had stayed, we wouldn't only gotten in the way. He states logically. Izuku hums nervously and his eyes flicker up to the ceiling. I hope everything is going okay. Unfortunately, it seems that the universe is not on Izuku's side today. To Izuku's and Hitoshi's surprise, Himiko begins to stir in her sleep despite the fact she's 3 hours early. Izuku pales and Hitoshi sits up straight as the girl slowly awakens. Himiko sits up, looks around her surroundings, and opens her mouth to scream. Luckily, Hitoshi was quick enough to lean over and block her mouth with his hand. Unluckily, Himiko did not appreciate being smothered with a stranger's hand and chose at that moment the best course of action was to bite down on the offending appendage. Chaos ensues. Upstairs, 2 adults sit across from one another at a kitchen table in a death glare match, while taking the occasional sip from their too strong coffee. The weary hero takes a long drink from his mug, then says, "Your coffee is just as good as ever." Aya takes a sip. "I made it extra dark and bitter, like your soul. Thanks for the sentiment." "You're fucking welcome." They set down their mugs with a sharp clack. And that's when the real interrogation begins. "When did you become active again?" "What? You know you got off easy last time. Why would you risk getting caught again?" He inquires, his words sounding more like a parent scolding their delinquent child. The young woman rolls her eyes. "Before you throw a pissy fit, I didn't become active. I stepped in to prevent a crime and the criminal happened to run off. I didn't expect anyone to link those needles to me so damn quick since I've been off the streets for a year now." She attempts to explain. Aizawa's eyes narrow and he picks up one of the needles, holding it in between his index finger and thumb at their eye level. "So, you're telling me that you went out in the middle of the night for a walk, ran into a crime scene, and just so happened to have these on you at the time?" "Exactamundo, my dearest hobo." Aya confirms, her voice confident. He stares back at her with an expression that screams, "I don't believe you." All she does in return is take another calm sip from her mug. "Then explain to me why there is a quilt on the table and why there are 3 mugs on the countertop behind you." Aya screams internally, but keeps a straight face as she explains, "I lost my apartment recently, so I am forced to sleep on my kitchen table, hence the quilt. As for the mugs, I got thirsty and decided to make a lot of hot cocoa." Aizawa slowly blinks like a cat. "So you are going to drink all 3 mugs of hot cocoa by yourself? I thought that was obvious." Aya says with false cheer. "Aha." The pro hero gets up and turns to leave. "Thanks for the coffee," he says over his shoulder, before slipping out the back door and returning from whence he came. Once the door closes shut behind his back, Aya lets out a deep sigh of relief. "Good job, me. You survived an encounter with the hobo demon." She muses while giving herself a well-earned pat on the back. She heads straight into her office and knocks on the secret door in her closet. "What? Brats?" The coast is clear. She hollers. She waits for a minute, growing concerned, and knocks again. "Hey guys, it's all clear. You can come out now." After another minute, she begins to grow impatient. "That's IT fuckers. I'm coming in." She kicks open the door, only to be run over by 3 overgrown, screaming toddlers teenagers. Her tall child is bleeding. Her small child is crying. Her new child is biting. Aya is at a loss as to what to do. This is why she never wanted kids of her own. "Gee, what would my parents have done in this situation?" she asks herself, before remembering that she didn't even have a father at all, or a responsible mother. The old man doesn't fucking count. He pretty much let Aya do her own thing. Now that she really thinks about it, this is probably why she has more issues than an IKEA bookshelf. Wait, where was she going with this? Another bite. Another scream. A yes. The children. Aya takes a deep breath before getting to work. 5 minutes later, all 3 toddlers teens are roped up in chairs as though they were the unfortunate victims in some R-rated thriller movie. If the police were to walk into her office right now, she'd be sent to Tartarus before she could even say, "Fuck you." The cafe owner glares down at the 3 of them with her arms crossed across her chest. "I leave for less than an hour, and this happens." She takes in a deep breath and smothers her face into her hands, before loudly groaning, "God, what am I gonna do with you brats?" In my defense, I didn't ask to become our guest's newest chew toy. Hitoshi grumbles under his breath. Himiko shoots the sleep-deprived teenager a scathing glare. Well, in my defense, I still have no idea where I am and who all of you are. For all I know, you guys could be a human trafficking ring. She argues. This response causes Hitoshi to dramatically roll his eyes. Police. You give yourself too much credit. You're too annoying to kidnap. He remarks with bitter sarcasm. Hey, you take that back, mister. I think bags are Gucci. What did you call me? Guys, please stop fighting, Izuku pleads in a whimper, only for his words to fall on deaf ears as he sinks lower into his chair. It was just his rotten luck that he so happens to be squeezed in between the two. Finally fed up, Aya drives her knuckles into the skulls of the two squabbling children, causing comically large bumps to swell on top of their heads. At last, to Izuku and Aya's relief, Hitoshi and Himiko finally stop fighting. Although nothing can be helped to stop them from shooting venomous glares at each other. Alright, now that I have your full attention, here's what's going to happen today. Their sensei starts off, before whipping out a very long list from seemingly nowhere. Just because it's fucking Christmas doesn't mean we're going to hold hands and sing Kumbaya around the fireplace. We're going to have a nice Christmas breakfast. We'll all clean the entire place from top to toe, which is described in the list of chores I have in my hand. This will take a majority of the day. Tonight, we'll have our Christmas dinner. The forecast predicts that there will be heavy snowfall for all of today, so we're going to be staying indoors. Any questions, comments, objections to what I've just said? What about me? Himiko asks, her head tilted to one side. I just said that we're staying indoors for today. That includes you. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not so heartless enough to kick a kid out into the streets during a heavy snowfall. Aya simply states, as if it was such a simple concept. The blonde girl blinks in surprise, but I hurt that man in the alley. You're not scared of my quirk? She questions, her voice small and hesitant. This time, Izuku pipes up and says, you weren't really in the right state of mind when you did that, and you said you've never killed any of your victims. So you didn't really commit any huge crimes other than probably assault, but like previously stated, you weren't really all there. Plus, judging from your outfit, you're a minor like me. So even if we were to turn you in right now, you could maybe get away with only a warning and mandatory quirk counseling. As for your quirk, it's fuel-based, right? So if you haven't consumed any blood in a while, your body makes you naturally crave it until you can't help but give in to your urges. Just because your quirk requires human blood to work doesn't mean it's a bad quirk. In fact, having the ability to change into different people has a lot of applications to hero work. You would be really great for infiltration. Or even better. Or maybe, Izuku. The greenette is knocked out of his train of thought and he sees his boss, his best friend, and the new girl staring at him with varying expressions. Aya has this deadpan look. Hitoshi looks very amused with his mutter storm. The new girl looks straight up confused at what she has just witnessed. He can feel his whole face turn bright red with morbid embarrassment after realizing he has been mumbling his thoughts this entire time. Izuku wishes his hands weren't bound so that he could bury his face into his hands to hide himself. Therefore, he settles with staring at the ground while wishing it will just open up and swallow him whole. Aya releases them from their binds and they all settle down in the kitchen. Like a well-oiled machine, Izuku, Hitoshi, and Aya set to work on breakfast. The stove is turned on and Aya starts working on the pancakes with Hitoshi's assistance. Izuku busies himself with setting the table. At the table, Himiko watches them work with fascination. Feeling left out, Himiko decides some conversation is needed. Her eyes land on the stove top and she notices the lack of blue cooking flames. Hey, you have one of those fancy electric stoves. You don't see those a lot, she says cheerfully, but her attempt doesn't have the desired effect. Instead of lightening the mood, the room dims. It's as though someone had hit the pause button. Hitoshi stops mixing the pancake mix in the mixing bowl. Izuku drops a plate, but luckily catches it on time before it can hit the floor. Aya's body goes rigid entirely. After a stiff, silent, 10-second pause, Aya snaps out of her stupor and simply states, "Fire isn't allowed here." Naturally, Himiko finds this rule odd, considering the fact that they are in a bakery/cafe, but she doesn't push for any more answers. Then it's like someone hit the play button. Hitoshi and Izuku continue working as though nothing had just occurred, and Aya resumes to flipping the golden brown pancakes in the skillet. Without taking her eyes away from the frying pan, Aya says to Hitoshi, "I got it from here, kid. Go get the stuff from the fridge." Hitoshi goes to the fridge and pulls out an assortment of jars from the fridge. "What do you like on your pancakes?" He inquires while his head is still in the fridge. Realizing he's talking to her, Himiko straightens up in her chair and replies, "Do you guys have strawberry jam?" Hitoshi pulls out a jar of jam and scrunches up his nose. "You really like this sugary shit?" She pouts, "Hey, I'm teasing. You're no better than Aizu." For some weird reason he likes to put maple syrup on his pancakes. The greenette sitting at the table pouts, "Hey, maple syrup is a totally normal condiment on pancakes. You're the weird one who puts flipping peanut butter on his pancakes. Well then, joke's on you. I'm not going to be the one dying from diabetes." Troll doll? Oompa Loompa? Eye bags? Freckles? Hey, freckles are cute. My mom loved my freckles, thank you very much. You're both fucking gorgeous. Now can you two please set the fucking table? The pancakes are done. Aya gripes from the stove, holding a platter of perfect golden brown pancakes. She doesn't have to say another word. Izuku had already set the plates and utensils a long time ago, so all that is needed are the condiments. Hitoshi sets down the jars in the center of the table, while Izuku grabs the milk and orange juice from the fridge. After everyone is settled, Aya plops 2 pancakes onto each plate. By now, the warm smell of freshly made pancakes has filled the entire kitchen. It brings Himiko back to her childhood, when things were simpler. When was the last time she had pancakes? She can't remember. "Toga-san, you're crying," Izuku says out of the blue. Himiko brings a hand to her cheek and it comes away wet. "I didn't notice. Is something wrong, kid? Do you not like pancakes?" Aya says, her voice genuinely concerned. The blonde shakes her head. No, I was just thinking. I can't remember the last time I had pancakes," she says with a small chuckle, before using the sleeve of her cardigan to wipe her tears. Her expression suddenly brightens with a strained smile. "Don't mind me. Let's eat them before they get cold and soggy." Aya huffs what she said. She says, before grabbing the honey bottle and squeezing a liberal amount of honey on her plate. Hitoshi gags. Izuku smirks and turns to Hitoshi. Last person to finish their pancakes has to clean out the clogged kitchen sink. A confident grin spreads on Hitoshi's face. "You're on." Himiko squeals as she spreads a liberal amount of jelly on her pancakes. "Count me in." "Savor the food. Savor it. I worked hard on these." "Oi. I hate you both," Hitoshi grumbles, causing Izuku and Himiko to laugh at his misery while they are busy sweeping and mopping. A shudder racks his body as he digs his hand into the kitchen sink drain. Oh dear God. It's cold, wet, and slimy, which is a very, very, very unpleasant combination. Hitoshi holds his breath and pinches his nose with his clean hand to protect himself from the horrid rotting stench. He pulls his hand up and he scoops out this horrible smelling green goop that may or may not have been the carrot tops from last week's carrot cake special. Hitoshi's face turns a worrying shade of green and he gags. "I think I'm going to be sick," he admits. Aya stands beside him, patiently holding out a trash bag. "This is why I warn you guys to stop tossing stuff down the sink. But do you guys ever fucking listen?" "No," she lectures. "But let's all sit down and eat, but before that, since it's fucking Christmas dinner and all, let's do a quick prayer," Aya says, grumbling the last part. They all bow their heads and Himiko follows their example even though she's not religious. Aya takes a deep breath and says, "Heavenly Father, thanks for keeping me alive for some damn reason. It's been a rough year, but I'm grateful for what I have. And thank you for bringing Thesakid's into my life." The last part is so rushed Izuku, Hitoshi, and Himiko don't even know what she said. What was the last part, boss?" Izuku inquires. "I'm not going to repeat myself. Now shut up and eat," she shouts before frantically stuffing her red face with mashed potatoes. It's been a month since Himiko has woken up in the cafe. Sometimes she wonders if she's actually dreaming all of this up. Maybe all of this is some sick illusion and none of this is real. For once in her life, She had people who accepted her for who she was. Despite the fact that she had threatened his life, Izuku has been nothing but kind to her. He reminds Himiko of a small, pure puppy. When he talks about quirks, he gets so excited. She can almost imagine a little tail wagging when he goes on his little mutter sprees. Lately, Izuku has started a habit of playing with her long blonde hair, and she lets him. He twists her hair into the most adorable twin buns. He even went out of his way to research ways for her to control her quirk's needs. She never knew that there are these special nutrition bars for people with a blood-related quirk like hers. Izuku and Hitoshi tried them on a dare, but they spat them right out. Apparently to them, it tastes like copper and raw beef. To Himiko, it tastes like cotton candy. Weird, huh? Anyways, she discovered she has to eat a bar at least twice a week, which Aya was completely okay with purchasing. Aya is like the older sister she never had. She may seem a little rough around the edges, but she cares. She has given her a full-time job, full support for her quirk, and a place to call home. Something no one has ever done before for someone like her. The only condition Aya set down in stone is that Himiko can never tell anyone about their secret identities as vigilantes. Which is easy enough for Himiko. She would never betray her new family. As for Hitoshi, it took a little while, but eventually she got the grouchy teen to warm up to her, despite being complete opposites of each other. She's bubbly and hyper, he's sarcastic and lethargic. She likes pop music, he likes smooth jazz. She pours cream and sugar into her coffee, he takes it bitter and black. Despite their differences, they were able to find a middle ground. Izuku. After vowing to never hurt Izuku again, he reluctantly welcomed her into their family from hell. Both boys were even nice enough to let her move in with them. Of course, she couldn't live with them in the hobo shack. So they helped her get set up with a Tobo van, which so happens to be parked only 2 trash heaps away from their place. Living in the hobo van is so much better than trying to survive on the streets. No more getting rained on. No more worrying about freezing to death. No more getting woken up by creeps trying to grope her. Life is good. Hey Blondie. If you don't hurry up, we're gonna be late. Hitoshi yells from above. He and Izuku are already dressed and waiting patiently at the top of the stairs that descend to the sands of the beach. Himiko pokes her head out of the front window and shouts back, "Hold your horses, Toshi-kun. I still need to put on my pretty bra and panties for you." Which isn't true, she's already fully dressed, she just needs to brush her hair. Either way, her statement rewards her with its intended effect. Hitoshi sputters in shock and Izuku hides his face in his hands in mortification. Hitoshi's face turns a dark blushing shade of red. Damn it, woman. Don't go shouting that stuff in public where everyone can hear you. Of course, this only makes Himiko burst into a fit of giggles and want to do it more. Meanwhile, Aya is down in the secret basement, unpacking a large crate that had arrived in the middle of the night. She grunts as she presses down on the crowbar with all her might, until the nails finally come loose and the lid pops free. Fucking finally, she says with a wide grin on her face. Inside the crate is a black jumpsuit with dark red accents, similar to the ones already hung up for the boys to wear later tonight. Beside the new suit are a pair of goggles and a grappling hook. The ex-vigilante sets aside the gadgets and hangs up the suit alongside the other two. Can't wait to see the brats' faces. She chuckles. Also meanwhile, Detective Naomasa leans back from his desk and rubs his tired eyes. So all of the attacks have stopped? He asks, before stifling a loud yawn. Officer Sansa, who looks equally exhausted, can't help but yawn as well. Yeah, pretty much. He says, before reading through the case file for what was probably the 100th time. The last attack victim was a young college student named Yamatori Yuzuru. He was found by the pro-hero Eraserhead with several minor knife wounds and a concussion. Victim claims that he never saw his attacker, nor who saved him. Unfortunately, there were no security cameras in that alleyway that could have given us any leads. However, there is evidence that all security cameras in the area have been tampered with. Most likely suspect, Horikoshi Aya, aka former vigilante Dragonfly. Eraserhead has already interrogated the suspect, concluded that she stepped in to defend the victim and the villain had escaped. There was no quirk usage involved, which exempts Horikoshi from any charges of illegal activity. The detective massages his temples. None of this adds up. If the villain got away, then attacks would still be occurring. What happened? Sansa shrugs. There is always the unfortunate possibility that the villain died. Naomasa shakes his head. There was no blood at the scene. Plus, no body has been reported that matches the description of the attacker. Sansa lets out a loud yawn. Man, I need some coffee, he remarks. Suddenly, it's like someone flipped a switch. Naomasa abruptly leaps up from his chair and slams his hands on his desk, scattering numerous documents to the floor. This causes Sansa to jump in surprise. The detective grabs Sansa by the shoulders and starts shaking the startled Catman back and forth. That's Sansa. You're a genius, he exclaims, before dashing out of the office in a beige-colored blur. The bewildered officer blinks slowly like a confused kitten. What did I do? Since Himiko made them late, they all had to race to the cafe to make it on time. Despite being obnoxiously short, Izuku surprisingly got there first. He bursts into the cafe with a cheeky grin and sweat dripping down his face. The bell dangling above the door rings, signaling his arrival. Good more dash, he starts, but the words quickly die in the back of his throat. Instead, a weird strangled noise comes out of the back of his throat. This catches the attention of the two adults glaring at each other across the bar counter. The detective raises a brow at the disheveled teen and questions, "Since when did you hire employees, Miss Horikoshi?" Aya is quick to deflect. "He's not my employee, he's family." True. Naomasa raises a brow and looks back and forth between the two greenettes. "I'm guessing green hair runs in the family, him?" Izuku's eyes widen in realization. "Oh yeah, we ran out of black hair dye last week. My hair must be turning green again." Aya lets out a nervous laugh that sounds obviously forced. "Yeah, kinda. Hey brat, go to the store will ya? We're out of peanut butter and strawberry jelly." Izuku immediately gets the message. Peanut butter and strawberry jelly. Those are Toshi's and Himiko's favorite pancake toppings. I have to keep them away from here. He gives Aya a salute and a nervous smile in return. "Roger. I'll be back." He leaves quickly and manages to catch Hitoshi and Toga at the corner. He grabs both of their hands and starts pulling them away from the cafe. Himiko, not liking being grabbed, struggles against his tight grip. "Hey, let go." "What the heck, Izuku?" Hitoshi snaps. Izuku sends both of them a panicked look. "Stop struggling. We have to get away from here." The detective with the lie detector quirk is at the cafe. "Aya told me to get all of us far away from here. We have to hide." Unfortunately, their luck gets even worse. Since Izuku wasn't watching where he was going, the three of them end up turning the corner and barreling straight into Eraserhead. The three fall back onto their butts and the tired pro-hero stares down at them in disdain. "Where are the three of you going in such a hurry?" He grumbles, barely loud enough for them to hear. Green eyes widen in shock. "It's Eraserhead. Run." He yanks his two partners up onto their feet and the three of them run away. Eraserhead has no idea why these kids are running away from him, but the fact one of them recognized him as a pro-hero and decided to run away tells him that they must be up to no good, so he pursues after them. They do everything they can to lose the skilled hero, but no matter how many alleys duck into or how many fire escapes they climb up or how many rooftops they hop, Eraserhead stays on their tail. Hitoshi grits his teeth as his legs start to burn horribly from the strain on his muscles. He glances over at Izuku and Himiko. They're not any better off either. They can't keep running forever. Panic curls in his gut as they dash down the bustling streets of Mizudafu. "If only I had my flashbangs." He inwardly curses. "Toshi, look!" Izuku shouts, pointing up ahead towards a bulky teen heaving a medium-sized bag of flour over his shoulder. Hitoshi immediately knows what Izuku wants him to do. He runs up to the muscular teen and grabs bag of flour. Using his teeth, he savagely rips it open and yeets it at their pursuer. An enormous cloud of white envelopes the pro-hero and several loud curses can be heard as Izuku and Himiko take the blessed opportunity to run away. Hitoshi apologetically hands the shocked teenager the empty bag of flour before joining his two friends. When the white cloud dissipates, all that's left behind is a furious Eraserhead, covered from head to toe in an even coating of flour. The nervous teenager, still holding the empty bag of flour, approaches the flour-covered man. Sir? Are you all right? Can I help you in any way? He asks, being the naturally kind person he is. Eraserhead sneezes, causing some flour to fly away into the cool morning breeze. I'm fine. He grits out between his teeth. Just tell me where's the nearest train station. The teenager nods and goes inside his parents' bakery to grab the man a wet rag and a blueberry muffin, before coming back outside. Here. He offers the rag to Eraserhead, who gladly wipes the offending powder from his eyes. After taking back the rag, now covered in wet flour, the teen helps him call a taxi and offers him the muffin to eat while he waits for his ride. The pro hero shakes his head. I don't have money on me right now. He explains to the young teen. The teenager shakes his head and holds out the muffin to the pro. That's okay. My parents always give heroes a free muffin as a thanks for doing their job. We don't have a lot of heroes who bother to come around here and patrol. You really don't have to do that, kid. Eraserhead insists. Just take it, mister. Eraserhead. Just take the muffin, Eraserheadson. The tired pro hero reluctantly accepts, and the teen cheerfully walks back inside his parents' bakery, feeling good about his small good deed of the day. Eraserhead takes a bite of the muffin and finds that it surprisingly tastes really good. He looks up at the old sign on top of the small building. The paint is faded and chipped, but he can still make out the words on the wood. Soft Blossom Bakery, He murmurs before taking another bite from his muffin. I'll probably bring Hisashi over here one day. He likes banana nut muffins. The trio climb through a broken window in an abandoned building and watch from afar as a flour-covered Eraserhead is taken away in a taxi. The group sighs in relief. We did it! Himiko exclaims before pulling her two friends into a bone-crushing hug. Himiko, Hitoshi chokes out. She releases them and they gasp for breath. Izuku quickly composes himself and looks out the broken window in the direction of the lounge, their home. Hitoshi notices Izuku's worried expression and places his hand on his shoulder in comfort. Aya is going to be fine. She can handle herself, he says, trying his best to sound optimistic. It doesn't work. Tears form in his big doe-like eyes. No. For all we know, she could be getting arrested right now. And it's my fault. If only I had been more careful. Hitoshi angrily shakes his head. It's not your fault, Izuku. If it's anyone's fault, it's mine. I shouldn't have used my quirk on that guy. None of this would have happened if I never had this stupid quirk. Both of you stop. Himiko exclaims out of the blue, causing both boys to stop their talking and to turn their attention to her. The blonde starts to cry. It's my fault. I'm a former wanted villain. I bet they're asking about me. Maybe if I turn myself in, they'll let Aya go. Izuku and Hitoshi freeze. What are you saying? Have you lost your mind? They both envelop the crying girl in a gentle hug, which only makes her cry more. Dummy. Aya would kill us if we did that. Hitoshi says harshly, but with feeling. Izuku sniffles and manages a watery laugh. What he said? Himiko finally stops crying and wipes her tears on the sleeve of her beige cardigan. Thanks, you guys. The touching moment is ruined when a huge explosion shakes the building. Boom. The trio spring apart from each other, startled from the loud noise. Izuku looks around in bewilderment. What was dash? Boom. Another loud explosion just like the last one cuts him off. It's coming from upstairs, Himiko shouts. The three vigilantes sprint out of the room and locate the stairs. With their vigilante experience under their belts, they stealthily climb up the steps until they can clearly hear the explosions becoming louder and clearer. The explosions lead them to the top floor of the 5-story building. Unlike the previous abandoned floors below, this floor looks well lived in. The floors are swept clean of debris and trash. The windows are intact and it looks like as though someone had just fixed them recently. One half of the room looks like any other chaotic teenager's room. Tucked in the upper right corner is a fridge and beside that is a table with a microwave on top. 2 plastic chairs surround the table. A pair of workshop goggles is hanging off one of the chairs. In the bottom right corner to their immediate right is a small flat-screen TV perched on top of a wooden crate. In front of the TV are 2 huge black bean bags. The other half of the room looks like a cross between someone's garage and a high-tech laboratory. In front of them in the upper left corner is a partially composed robot suit that looks like it's in the process of being built. Pushed up against the left wall are 3 desks, 2 made of steel and 1 made of wood. The steel tables have other various gadgets and tools scattered across their surfaces. The wooden table is cluttered with blueprints and notebooks of sketches for inventions that have yet to be made. In the middle of all of this is a teenage girl with pink dreadlocks struggling to get a metal boot off of her foot. Oblivious to her new audience, she continues to struggle and mutter angrily to herself, "I designed. Right off in case, definitely going to have to fix. Excuse me? Do you need some help with that?" Izuku nervously asks from the doorway. The pinkette looks up, scrutinizing them under her inquisitive yellow eyes, before her lips pull up into an excited grin. "Hi. Didn't see you there. Are you all here to check out my amazing babies?" "Hi. Didn't see you there. Are you all here to check out my babies?" The girl with pink hair, yellow eyes, and grease-stained cheeks asks with overwhelming enthusiasm. Izuku sputters, unable to find the proper words to come out of his mouth. Seemingly forgetting the heavy metal boot still trapped to her foot, the strange girl walks straight up to the trio. The boot makes a crude noise as she is forced to drag the metal across the cold concrete, forcing the 3 vigilantes to wince and cover their ears. The boot wearer seems absolutely oblivious to the screeching metal sound as she casually invades their personal space with a ridiculously wide grin. She holds out her hand. "I'm Hatsum May, future founder of Hatsum Industries. But you can just call me May." She enthusiastically introduces herself. As a fellow person lacking the understanding of personal space, Himiko is naturally the first one to warm up to the pinkette. With equal vigor and enthusiasm, Himiko accepts the handshake and says, "My name's Toga Himiko. The purple troll on my left is Toshikuin, and the green bush baby on my right is Izukuin." Taking offense at the troll comment, Hitoshi clears his throat and corrects, "My actual name is Shinso Hitoshi." Izuku smiles good-naturedly. "You can call me Izukuin if you want to." He adds nervously. May suddenly spins around and clumsily walks over to one of the work tables, while speaking over the loud grating sound of her boot. "Well, you guys came at just the right time. I need test subjects for my newest baby." She lifts up another boot, identical to the one stuck on her foot. "This is Jet Boot Baby 7.0. Test subjects?" Izuku says quietly, his face going pale. 7.0? Hitoshi mumbles under his breath incredulously. "Did you say babies?" Himiko exclaims, her feline-like eyes sparkling. May places the boot down and returns to her attempts to remove the other boot from her foot. "Yep. My babies are my great inventions," she clarifies. Her face turns an unhealthy shade of red as she strains to wrench the boot off of her foot. Izuku, ever the helpful one, approaches the struggling girl. "Do you need any help?" Breathless, she takes a breather before replying, "Yeah, sure, on 3. 3. Izuku grabs around her ankle and she pulls her leg back towards her, but the damn thing refuses to budge. Izuku looks over his shoulder at his 2 best friends. A little help here?" he asks pleadingly. His friends quickly join in. Hitoshi wraps his arms underneath Izuku's armpits and Himiko wraps her arms around May's waist. May takes a deep breath before chanting. 1, 3. On 3 they all pull. With their combined strength, the boot flies off, causing the 4 of them to fall on their asses. The heavy metal boot soars through the air and hits the opposite wall, leaving a large dent in the cheap plaster. Grinning, May wriggles the toes on her free foot. "Thanks for the help, my minions. It was getting kinda steamy in there." Before Hitoshi can throw out a "that's what she said" joke, Izuku quickly clamps his hand over his mouth and bashfully waves off the pinkette's praise. "It's not a big deal. We'll just be on our way now." While this is all going on, Himiko is casually browsing the wide variety of unfinished products scattered across the entirety of the room. They all look really impressive and quite complicated. Himiko doesn't know the first thing about machines though, so this is definitely out of her element. Just with a quick glance at each piece, she has a general idea of its purpose and function. A few handheld lasers, a deconstructed robot arm, a flying drone missing a couple propellers, etc. It all looks confusing, yet fascinating at the same time. Himiko picks up one of the laser guns and turns to the inventor. "Oh, what does this one do?" she asks her. May's eyes widen and she raises her hands up in alarm. "Wait. Drop the baby." She drops the device on the work table like hot coal and hits the floor. It shoots out a bright red laser, barely missing her head by an inch. A smoking hole the size of a quarter is burned into the opposite wall. Izuku lets out a strangled sound and Hitoshi's eyes bulge out of his skull. May calmly shrugs off the event as though this was something that happens on a daily, which it probably is. Cool and collected, she picks up a hammer from the floor and brings it down onto the malfunctioning laser. The device is kaput. Is it safe now? Himiko questions from the floor. Up. Fire Laser Baby 4.0 has been destroyed. May informs her, giving the failed invention a slight frown before shoving its smoking remains into a nearby wastebasket. Himiko breathes a sigh of relief and stands up. Hitoshi rubs his temples. "Does this happen often?" he inquires in an exasperated tone. May hums and replies, "Nah, not anymore. It used to happen every day, but since I've gotten better at tinkering, I've reduced it to at most once a week." The violet-haired teenager facepalms. "Is that why we heard so many explosions earlier?" Izuku questions out loud. May nods vigorously. Yup. Those explosions were from Jet Boot Baby 7.0. It's supposed to let out small explosions from the sols to slow a person's descent from a high place. Let's say you're forced to jump from a skyscraper, but you don't have a flight quirk in handy. This way you can jump without a fear of breaking your bones. She explains. A puzzled expression forms on Izuku's face. "So what's wrong with it?" She lets out a frustrated sigh and rants. "Well, a lot of things. First of all, the explosions didn't come out consistently. One can be too weak, the next one can make a whole building rattle. I've finally fixed it, but now the explosions are too strong all the time. I don't know how to make them adjustable to the wearer. Nitroglycerin is a tricky substance, you know." At the word nitroglycerin, a memory pops into Izuku's brain. It's quick and barely there, but for a split second he remembers ash blonde hair, bright red eyes, a victorious grin, and sparking palms. A great quirk for hero work, Izuku subconsciously mumbles under his breath. May leans forward. "What was that, my minion?" Izuku snaps out of his trance and refocuses his attention on May. "If you don't mind me suggesting, I think you should change your design a bit. Instead of boots, make them into gloves. That way someone can use it for combat." The inventor seems to let his words sink in, before grinning and pulling the greenette into a hug. "That's a fantastic idea. Why didn't I think of that?" "Thanks, minion." When she releases him, Izuku is a blushing, stuttering mess. "No PR problem," he stammers. May immediately turns her attention to her work and starts sketching out the blueprints for her nude baby. While she is distracted, the trio share a glance and simultaneously decide that now would be the best time to sneak away while the eccentric inventor is distracted. They have one foot out the door when May calls out to them. "Hey minions," she shouts. They all turn around to see her, sending them a bright smile. "Come back in a few days and help me test Explodopalm Baby 1.0 out, okay?" she asks cheerfully, her yellow eyes pleading. Izuku, Hitoshi, and Himiko share a look, and against their better judgment, they agree to come back this Sunday, their day off. As they walk away from the ramshackle building, Izuku catches sight of a peeling sign hammered onto the front of the building. He stops in his tracks and his eyes latch onto the bold black words, "Private property of Shigaraki Hisashi Company." He mumbles under his breath. A flash image of a large hand reaching out for his face pops into the back of his mind. Hitoshi and Himiko notice Izuku's strange behavior and Himiko gently prods his shoulder. "Izu-kun." A sharp pain stabs through the center of Izuku's forehead and radiates through the rest of his head. The greenette groans and he would have fallen if Hitoshi and Himiko hadn't been by his side to support him. "Whoa there, Izuku," Hitoshi says calmly, before sharing a worried look with Himiko. Just as fast as it hit, the pain disappears completely, leaving Izuku baffled. "What was that?" he ponders. Are you okay now, Izuku-an? Himiko asks, her brows furrowed with worry. Izuku sends them a reassuring smile. I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Just felt a little disoriented for a second there. His friends still look doubtful, but thankfully they don't push any further. Izuku is quick to change the topic. Let's head back to the lounge and check up on Aya-sensei. That detective should be gone by now. Hitoshi groans, please, no more racing. My legs are still dead. Meanwhile, back at the lounge, Detective Naomasa is starting to get frustrated. The young woman sitting on the opposite side of the lacquer bar countertop is lying. It's blatantly obvious. It's clear as day. Yet his quirk continues to register as everything she says as true. Aya has never been a skilled liar, not at all. She would be laughed right out of a casino for her utter lack of dishonesty. Naomasa knows this. So how is she doing it? Have you conducted any illegal activity within the past year? Last time I checked, making bomb-ass coffee ain't illegal, detective. She replies tersely. True. Naomasa takes a deep breath. Okay, let me clarify. Have you done any vigilantism lately? Define the term lately. That could either mean yesterday or months ago. Aya snarks. Specifically within the last couple of months? If you're specifically referring to that event regarding the assault victim I saved about 4 weeks ago, that wasn't vigilantism. I just fucking happened to be at the right place at the right time, and I saved the guy's ass from getting his blood drained. The villain is a skilled motherfucker who knows how to wield knives. I didn't bring them in because I couldn't. True. Aya gives him a cocky smile. Also, I already had this conversation with that hobo demon. I passed his interrogation. I have absolutely nothing left to hide. So why are you here, detective? She inquires, her voice lightly taunting. False. The detective has to force himself to not react. On the outside, his stern expression hasn't changed in the slightest, but on the inside he is reeling with shock. This is the first time in the entire conversation that her words have registered as a lie. He frantically reruns her taunting statement through his mind like a tape recorder. It's true that Eraserhead has already interrogated her. It's true that she passed Eraserhead's interrogation. She's hiding something. She is definitely hiding something. And he thinks he has a slight hunch as to what that something is. A frown tugs down on Naomasa's lips and he leans forward on the stool. I'm here, because I know for a fact that you're hiding something from me. He replies, his voice soft, yet unwavering. Shock, anger, then panic flashes through her lime-green eyes. It was at this moment that Aya knew she lost the game. The detective stands up, the stool's feet scraping against the wood floor. I will return sometime soon with a search warrant either tomorrow or on Sunday, he states before making his way to the front door. Aya's eyes widen and she jumps up from her chair. Wait, she cries. The detective stops and turns around. Doesn't it usually take at least a week to get a search warrant approved? She questions. It depends on the priority of the case. Naomasa explains to the distraught barista, the Hero Commission doesn't take the threat of vigilantism lightly. Though you probably already know that. Her entire back throbs with phantom pain. With no further words needed to be said, the detective steps out of the establishment, donning his detective hat before ducking into his patrol car and driving away. Aya stands in the middle of her cafe, unmoving. However, on the inside she wants to scream at the heavens, throw a childish tantrum, curse the nastiest words she knows, kick something, punch something, etc. But after 10 whole seconds of complete silence, she cries. Izuku cackles as he turns into the alley behind the cafe. First, he shouts victoriously. Not far behind him is a blonde blur. Second, Himiko cheers, before fist-bumping Izuku. About a half a minute later, their purple-haired friend slowly walks around the corner. Hitoshi raises an accusing finger at the two and shoots them a venomous glare. You assholes. He struggles to say between each heaving breath. Ah, Toshikuan's whittlewigs are tired. Himiko teases. Shut the hell up, Yui's hag. Hitoshi retorts, causing Izuku to snicker. He turns his attention to the snickering greenette. And you left me. Izuku shrugs. Not my fault you're slow. My legs are longer than yours. How are you so much faster than me? The exhausted teen whines. Spite. Sugar. Himiko and Izuku stare at each other. Sugar. Spite. Izuku turns back to Hitoshi with a serious expression on his face. Both. Definitely both. He deadpans. Hitoshi rolls his eyes and walks over to the back in trance. Let's just go inside and get to work. I'm starving, he says before knocking. Knock 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 knock. Door is open. Come in. Hitoshi pushes the door open and the others follow him inside. They find Aya at the kitchen sink, over-aggressively scrubbing at a muffin pan. A dark, murderous aura surrounds her and the entire kitchen. As they approach the irate woman, they can hear her oddly calm muttering over the sound of the sink, motherfucking detective, motherfucking hero commission, motherfucking eraser, motherfucking nosy fuckers. Izuku starts sweating bullets. Aya-sensei? Are you okay? He asks, partly out of concern, partly out of fear. Aya throws the trio a quick glance over her shoulder, before turning her focus back on the pile of dirty dishes. Go downstairs. I have some news I need to tell you three. She orders bluntly. The three share a nervous glance, but follow her orders. Aya watches the three teenagers' backs as they walk out of the kitchen. She turns off the sink and dries off her hands, before using the damp towel to dry her damp eyes. The 20-something-year-old takes a shuddering breath, before examining her surroundings. It's only been a little bit more than a quarter of a year since those two boys have first walked through the front door of her humble cafe. So much change has happened in the past 3 months. On the dish-drying rack are 4 mugs, each a different color. One is jet black in color, and on the outside it reads in bold gold letters, Queen Bee *TCH. The one sitting beside it is All Might themed, a total eyesore in Aya's professional opinion. Beside that one is a Cheshire Cat themed mug, complete with a wily grin. The fourth one and final one is a dark crimson color, with girly writing on the outside in sparkly pink that reads, Sweet Pea. The cabinets no longer creak when you try to open or close them, the sink has stopped leaking, and the back door doesn't squeak. Both of the boys are surprisingly quite good with their hands. Together they fixed all of them within the first week of working here. Himiko has a good eye for design too. All of the old gray curtains have been replaced with refreshing mint green ones. She insisted that they change the old-fashioned lamp lights hanging from the ceiling to a more modern style. Aya has to agree that the place looks much brighter and more inviting. However, Aya is not getting rid of the pool table and vintage pinball machine. Those will never change. Aya exits the kitchen and enters her tiny office. However, the biggest change is displayed on the walls of her office. Once bare, now have a collection of picture frames, each one containing a memory. There's the surprise photo she took of Izuku and Hitoshi while they were baking cookies together in the kitchen. Below that is the picture of the two boys posing in their new vigilante suits. Beside that is the picture of the 4 of them after Christmas dinner, the only photo of the 4 of them together. Taking a deep breath, Aya pulls herself together, before entering the unassuming closet and heading down the hidden staircase. In the secret basement, the kids are patiently sitting on the scattered boxes, anxiously waiting for their teacher. When Aya steps into the small room, she gives them all a weary smile. Calm down, brats. You guys look like you're going to shit your pants. She jokes, trying to lighten the mood. Then she walks over to the large crate tucked away in the corner and pulls it out into the middle of the room, right in front of Himiko. Go ahead and pop it open, kid. Got a surprise for ya, she says with a wink, giving the two boys a knowing smile. Himiko looks between the 3 with suspicion, before removing the lid. She lets out a loud gasp, which turns into an excited squeal. Izuku and Hitoshi embrace their teammate from behind and Aya snaps a quick photo of the 3, capturing the moment forever. Himiko stares down at her vigilante costume with teary eyes. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. She jumps up to pull the older woman into a crushing hug. Thank you, Aya-san. Aya awkwardly pats the younger girl's back. It's not a big deal. She mumbles under her breath with a huff. After they pull out of the hug, Aya gives Himiko her tools and weapons. Like Izuku and Hitoshi, she also has a communication device and goggle headset. For her specialized weapons, Aya gave her an assortment of throwing knives, daggers, shurikens, All the fun sharp pointy things you can possibly think of. Himiko's suit had to be specially modified with a vest asterisk that will carry all of these sharp pointy things for her so both hands can be free. For now, just stick with what you know. I'll teach you how to safely throw the shurikens when I've got time. Aya says sternly, when she sees Himiko staring at the shurikens with a little bit too much glee. Then she turns her attention to the boys and orders, "Tonight, I want you guys to take Himiko out on patrol to show her the ropes. Be back here at midnight. Got it?" "Yes, Aya-san." The two chorus. Aya nods in approval and says, "Get changed. I have business to take care of tonight, so I won't be able to come assist you guys if you run into trouble. Which means I need you guys to stay out of trouble. Don't get into a fight you know you can't win." Hitoshi raises a brow. "Where are you going, sensei?" "Yeah, this is the first time you've ever let us go out without backup," Izuku adds. Aya turns around and starts walking up the stairs. "Like I said, I have to take care of business tonight," she says mysteriously. When the three hear the secret door at the top of the stairs swing shut, Himiko bursts into a fit of giggles. Hitoshi looks at the giggling blonde with confusion. "What are you giggling about?" he inquires. "Isn't it obvious?" Himiko whispers with a blush on her face. Izuku and Hitoshi lean forward, intrigued. The blonde dramatically spins around like a top with her arms wrapped around herself in a self-hug. "Our beautiful older sister is in love," she remarks with a squeal. Izuku's cheek burn hot pink. "What?" he exclaims incredulously. Hitoshi snorts. "Preposterous." Himiko grabs the front of Hitoshi's shirt and shakes him back and forth. "Yes it?" She screeches directly in his face, causing Hitoshi to shove the overzealous girl off of him. "You're insane," Hitoshi grunts. "Besides, who the hell will want to risk their lives dating her?" This remark earns him a solid punch to the shoulder, courtesy of Himiko. Meanwhile, Izuku is sitting on the sidelines. Pondering this possibility, well, it's not totally out there. Aya-san is a very private person after all. Even if she did have a significant other, she probably wouldn't tell us. He reasons. Hitoshi holds a hand over his heart in mock betrayal. "Not you too." Himiko giggles and says, "I bet it's that detective guy." "What?" "No way, Aya-san isn't the type of person to go for a guy like that. He looks like he walks with a stick up his ass." "Oh yeah? Then who do you think it is, Toshikuan? If she's dating anyone, it's gotta be Eraserhead?" Hitoshi argues. Izuku shakes his head at both of their antics. "Either way, we shouldn't get involved. If Aya-san wants to keep her supposed relationship a secret, then we should respect her privacy." "Yeah, but aren't you curious?" Himiko teases. Izuku crosses his arms defensively. "Well, of course. But that doesn't mean dash." Himiko raises her hand, all in favor of snooping, Seika. Hitoshi raises his hand. Izuku sighs in exasperation. "This is a terrible idea." He grumbles. The streets of downtown Mizudafu are slick from the light drizzle falling from the clouded sky. Thunder rolls overhead, a promise of a bigger storm. No sane person would be walking at this hour. Except Aya isn't a sane person by any means of the definition. Unlike her usual getup, her black leather jacket has been replaced by a large black overcoat, her torn denim jeans traded for knit tight leggings, and her distinctive red bandana has been discarded and left behind. But most suspicious of all is the briefcase held tightly in her right hand. Aya pauses under a street lamp for what feels like the 1,000th time that night on her trek. The back of her neck is crawling with the feeling of being watched, something that has become a sixth sense after years of living on the streets. She can't even count how many times her gut instinct has saved her life. So she isn't about to doubt it now. She spins around and demands, "I know you're there. Whoever you are, show yourself." After standing under the pool of light for another minute, she continues her journey with her grip on the briefcase a little bit tighter. The feeling of being watched doesn't fade. After about half an hour of walking, Aya changes her course and enters a dim alleyway. The building on the left is a regular office building for a local newspaper. The building on the right is divided, the bottom floor being a karaoke bar and the top floor being an arcade. She knocks on the door to the karaoke bar. An employee opens the door and she flashes a plastic card for him to see. To anyone else, it's an ordinary exclusive membership card, But the gold glittery Geech sticker stuck in the bottom right corner means something else entirely. The employee steps to the side and says, "He's been expecting you. Please follow me." Aya silently bows her head in thanks and follows him inside. He escorts her to one of the rooms stowed away in the far back of the establishment. As they pass the other occupied rooms, Aya glances inside to see drunk college students, partying the night away, totally unaware of what occurs behind closed doors. They come to a stop outside of the secluded door and the employee knocks on the door. "Come in." A rough male voice calls from within. The employee is quick to make himself scarce, leaving Aya alone in the empty hallway. She closes her lime-colored eyes and sends a quick prayer for strength before turning the knob and entering the room. Inside is designed differently from the other rooms. 2 leather couches take up the opposite walls, facing each other. In the middle is a glass coffee table. The air is heavily muddled with the smell of cigarette smoke. Leaning back on one of the couches is a middle-aged man dressed in a lavish purple suit. His lips are curled up into a Cheshire grin, revealing a large gap where a tooth is missing. Behind his round sunglasses, gray eyes light up with recognition. "Well, can't say that this is a surprise." "Nice to see you again, Dragonfly," the man says casually in a long drawl, before lighting a new cigarette. Aya sits down on the opposite couch and sets the briefcase down beside her. "This isn't a casual visit, Jiren." The broker takes a drag on his cigarette and sighs. "You've never been the type to beat around the bush." "Damn straight." All right, let's talk business." Vigilante de Fix. Puppet Master by Crumblekitty. Izuku is born with a quirk that lets other people control him. Inko goes a little bit absolutely crazy with this newfound sense of control over her son and abuses Izuku relentlessly. He escapes and becomes the vigilante, Golden Whip. That's all I'm going to say cause I don't want to spoil more. If you've read Quirkless Rejects, then you've got to check this one out. They're written by the same author. Status, ongoing. Pied Piper by Understand. Izuku takes Muay Thai, hoping that the training will make him better prepared to become a hero. But after Yue refuses to let him even try for the hero course, he starts to second-guess himself. However, after saving a little girl and realizing he can be a hero, he decides that he'll be a hero, even if vigilantism is illegal. Oh, and he becomes friends with Detective Naomace's nephew. You have to read it to find out how that happens. You will always be on the edge of your seat with this one. Status, ongoing. Figure it out by fabulously equivocating. Inko, #bestinimum but not in this EU, abandons Izuku. He is forced to overcome it all with nothing but his big brain to help him. He figures it out. Through vigilantism. Status, ongoing. Time Slip by Skylar Sky High, and XX_XX. Izuku has a time manipulation quirk that lets him slip out of the hero's grasp. Aizawa is frustrated and needs a lot of coffee. Also, Dabi and Hitoshi are his brothers. You'll have to read to find out how that happens and to drown with all of the brotherly love. Drown in it. Status, ongoing. For makes one team by Tashirts. Izuku, Katsuki, Hitoshi, and Shudo are best friends. They are infamous Purple Carders, the mysterious vigilante group that solves crimes better than any other in Japan. Is what they're doing legal? Kinda. Do they have their parents' approval? Absolutely. Status, ongoing. Viridian, the Green Guide by Mihedin the Cuts not coming down. After his dream is finally crushed, Izuku isn't quite sure there's anything left for him to live for, but he can't exactly kill himself either, not without hurting the people he cares the most about. So, when he realizes that the quirkless can't technically be vigilantes, it seems like the best of both worlds. AKA, Izuku is a suicidal vigilante and he gives Aizawa multiple heart attacks in the process. Status, ongoing. Ghost by Shura 11. Izuku never went to UA and instead worked hard to become a paramedic, hoping that would be enough to fulfill the need to help people. It helps but isn't enough. He inevitably falls into the role of a vigilante and Izuku finds himself trying to balance between his two lives. Life gets more chaotic when there is a surge in the use of a dangerous drug. The drive to do more starts to push harder as Izuku uses his alter ego to investigate the mysterious trigger and try to put a stop to it. Heavy to-do Deku. Like, a lot of to-do det. A lot of to-do det. Status, ongoing. Kasho Hyoka Izzy by Skylar Sky High, and XX_Sklover XX. Aizawa is assigned to capture and turn in the vigilante Ghost. However, when he learns that Ghost is a child, he refuses. Instead, he adopts the green bean. He blames his bleeding heart. Status, ongoing. Smile and Spite by Galaxy Breath. UA has 3 ways to get into the hero course. 1. You take the hero entrance exam and score high enough to be let in. 2. You have to be recommended by a pro hero and take the recommendation exam. 3. You secretly be a vigilante for a year without getting caught. Guess which one Izuku is shooting for. Status, ongoing. To Be or Not to Be by Blue Horse 44. Izuku has multiple personalities. He is the hero, which is the vigilante. Beetle is the villain. Together they drive everybody nuts. Chaos ensues. Status, ongoing. Regenerate Fate by Jellifellow. Announced legally dead, he creates a new identity, Izuku Midoriya. Eraserhead is tasked with bringing down one of Japan's most wanted vigilantes by the name of Oni. Little does he know, the vigilante is in his homeroom class. Izuku also a badass regeneration quirk that makes me wonder if this is a Deadpool. Plus has them to do Deku feels. Cause to do Deku is life. Status, ongoing. Because he sat on a pile of ash, rewrite by Blue__Brit. Izuku loses everything, but he gains something in the process, a new family. In other words, a badass vigilante who goes by the moniker Eclipse adopts the sweet green bean child as her younger brother. After all, orphaned vigilantes gotta stick together. Can you see where I got the partial inspiration for Aya's character? Kenya? Status, ongoing. The original FIC was discontinued and this is the rewrite. Hell already broke loose here by Magic Meiji. Izuku is a vigilante/mafia boss and he owns a Walmart. Don't ask. Seriously, just don't. Izuku legit acts like he's high on crack half of the time. 11 out of 10 would recommend if you're looking for a real side splitter. Hashtag IzukuLaxMorals 2020. Status, ongoing. What We Cannot Undo by Cassid. Izuku committed suicide by taking a swan dive off the roof, just like Kaken suggested. He becomes a ghost and decided, hey, I'm dead, might as well become a vigilante and help people because he's so freaking pure like that. He is such a cinnamon roll. Bakugu has regrets. Status, complete. Bitch, I'm Incognito by Rin__. When a villain blew up Midoriya Izuku's apartment complex at the age of 9, everyone believed Endeavor when he said the boy was dead. Except he wasn't. With 2 best friends at his side, and 6 years of vigilantism under his belt, he decides they're going to UA. As vigilantes. This is such a fun FIC. Izuku is 5 feet 5 inches, of pure sass and flirt. The to-do Deku goes through the roof later on in the FIC wink. And if you want to read about Izuku disguising himself as a female vigilante, aka cross-dressing, this is the FIC for you. Status, ongoing. A House Divided Against Itself by Beyond the Clouds 777. Become a villain, they said. I'll be a villain, he said. He lied. He's only there so he can tear apart the League of Villains from the inside out. You'll love Bitcoin. Everybody loves the fudging bird. I think all vigilantes should have an emotional support animal. Status, complete. Black Rabbit by the Foggy London View. Tadadaku. So much Tadadaku. Damn. On another note, Izuku was raised by the infamous vigilante Black Dragon. He follows in his footsteps as Black Rabbit. And like a true hero, he saves Todoroki from Endeavor's clutches. Status, ongoing. A reckless vigilante and his supportive mother by Katya Stark. Kinda says it all in the title. Izuku is a reckless vigilante and Inko is his man in the chair. Has a lot of Spider-Man vibes. Status, ongoing. Undefined by Plant Sandpaints. The police know nothing about him. No name, quirk, description, hits in the system, nothing. All his victims can tell them is that he is male and that they only saw the hoodie and the gun. Everything about him is undefined. Ooh, mysterious, you should read it. I'm pretty sure this is like one of the OG vigilante fics. Like, before Vigilante Izuku fix were cool. Status, undefined, But seriously, I really hope this isn't discontinued. Green Lightning by reaching for stars 152. For one thing, Izuku is non-binary in this FIC, meaning they use they/them pronouns. Read the FIC for Garby the Ferret. You will fall in love with Garby the Ferret. This is also the FIC that inspired the Hobo Shack. Status, complete. His Kiddalant by Otaku6337. Thank you for recommending this user under Izuku is a vigilante who was named Kiddalant by Aizawa. He's snarky as heck and uses a frying pan to fight with. Dadzawa. He gets into UA and Aizawa figures him out pretty fast, but just wants to take care of him. A lot of cuteness, tongue sticking out. Status, ongoing. The Quirkless Vigilante, Seishun by Tired_4Y. When Izuku Midoriya becomes the Vigilante Seishun and ends up running into a injured Erasure Head, what will he do? And what will he do when he keeps running into the hero in and out of uniform? Will the hero help or arrest him? This should go underneath the Dadzawa section, but Izuku is a vigilante and that serves first priority. Status, ongoing. Worthless Necessity by Kirichondusrito. Quirks aren't everything in this world, nor is your family status. Animals are treated less than humans, even though they have the capacity to feel emotions and think for themselves. They're pushed away, merely because they're not human. Nizu? Heck, he's so smart, everyone's scared of what would happen if they got on his bad side. Half the society, at the very least, still think that he's just an animal. Midoriya? No quirk, he's ranked even lower, less than human. At least Nizu still had a quirk. Warning, this is a very long FIC. Status, still ongoing, 132 chapters strong. No One Left Behind by Cosmic Ace. Big thank you to users FullMetalDude1 and Iris the Dweeb for leaving a recommendation for this story. The story of how Inko Midoriya ends up with 16 vigilante children, 3 young kids, 3 older kids, 1 hero son-in-law, a husband that lights things on fire when he sneezes, and a partridge in a pear tree. Biggest found family FIC ever. Like, where has this been in my life? Status, ongoing. A Robin's Nest by Silver Mist Anime Lover. When Izuku was young, he was sent back in time to the pre-Quirk era, where he was trained by Batman as his infamous sidekick, Robin. At some point, Izuku comes back, as though he never left at all. But even though he lost what he had in the past, he doesn't give up vigilantism. The author also wrote Viridian. / Status, ongoing. Viridian by Silver Mist Anime Lover. Thank you user guest 661687 for this FIC rec. Izuku Midoriya has given up on being a hero. He went on to get a job as a support engineer with a degree in computer science. Not quite fulfilling enough for his heroic heart, he becomes infamous vigilante Viridian. Then the world goes to shit. There's danger around every corner with dangerous genetic monstrosities called Numu killing off the human race until nobody's left except Shigaraki and his minions. Then a spark of hope when Izuku and his older brother Shoyuta find Project Hope. Using it, Izuku travels back in time to his 14-year-old self on the roof with all might. Follow a traumatized time-traveling Izuku as he makes fun of pros and police, makes it into the hero course this time, and attempts legal murder to prevent the apocalypse. Status, ongoing. Finding Abandoned Hope by Galactic Therapy. Izuku is born quirkless, Inko is a bad mom. Hitoshi is born with a villainous quirk, he lost faith in adults a long time ago. They find each other. Together, they strive to make the world a better place. Status, ongoing. Villain D-Fix. Quirkless Rejects by Crumble Kitty. Izuku finds solace in quirklessbowels.net, a website where other people like him truly understand the pain of being quirkless in a quirked society. He and his online friends meet up IRL. They become vigilantes. Then they become villains. Really, they just want to show the world how twisted society is and fix it. Viva el quirkless y'all. Mention this FIC in a previous chappy, which is where I got the name Soft Blossom Bakering from. Truly a masterpiece. Status, complete. Mastermind. strategist for hire by Miheden that's not coming down. Broken and beaten down by society, Izuku starts small and becomes an information broker for the villains. Eventually, his reputation grows and his name becomes feared by all heroes. After all, he killed so many of them. This FIC is essentially Deku? I think he's some pro, twisted on its head 180 degrees. Written by the same author too. Status, complete. Beautifully broken open end, English, by Seraphira Lilith. Izuku has a gift. People abuse that gift. Abuse him. They twist him until he breaks. Shatters. People try to help him, but they fail. When it seems like Izuku has nothing left to live for, Stain takes him under his wing. The name Survey sends shudders down heroes' spines. You do not want to cross Survey. Hashtag Izuku has issues. Status, complete. Ohana means family by no like sumus. Inko, a villain on the run, is diagnosed with cancer and she gives her son over to Kurogiri because she trusts him to take care of him. Izuku is raised by the League of Villains, wins everyone over with a smile and brings home stray cats. This is probably the fluffiest villain, Deku FIC you will ever read. Status, ongoing. Hero Class Civil Warfare by Rogue Druid, Icarius 51. Thank you user eFlower123 for the recommendation. A typical over-the-top UA test that happens every year in this AU. Both hero classes together, 7 days to prepare, 3 days to complete the win conditions. Heroes are led by P, villains by Midoriya. Everyone else gets to pick sides. All in all's 10 days for Midoriya to show everyone why they should be glad he's not a villain. So not exactly a villain AU, but Izuku is freaking scary. Status, complete. A dangerous game by Tsukithwolf. Izuku has to live a double life if he and his loved ones are to survive, even if that means lying to everyone and committing deeds that he's not sure the heroes would forgive him for. He just needs to come up with a plan to defeat one of the most powerful men in the world, maintain both of his covers in the presence of enemies and allies alike, and hopefully not forget then reels him. Sounds easy, right? Status, complete. Anyone by Gentry Child. Thank you eFlower123 for the FIC rec. So Izuku is a villain, but he helps people with his villain organization. So he's a good villain. Oh, and he, not so, accidentally steals OFA and AFO won't leave him the fuck alone. Yeah, it's as amazing as it sounds. 3. Status, ongoing. Izuku has a really cool quirk that helps him become best hero bio. Catching Sight of the Storm by Neo 7V. Izuku is blind, but he's not letting that stop him from becoming a hero. He has a air manipulation quirk where he can see the ribbons of moving air around him, which allows him to siege the outlines of his surroundings. I get Toph vibes from this FIC, I swear. But it's like if Aang was blind. Also has some sweet to do Deku. Status, complete. Flight of the Dragonfly by Thean Tumbry. Izuku has a quirk that allows him to control bugs. This is surprisingly very versatile. Like I'm shook. Aya's vigilante name was inspired by this FIC. Aya's original vigilante name was supposed to be Sprite, but I didn't want people to think I named her after a soda brand. Angry face. Status, ongoing. Canary by Cloud Supporters. Izuku has a song quirk. So whatever song he sings, there's a quirk he can use from that song. For example, if he sings Set Fire to the Rain by Adele, he will legit set fire to the rain. You can probably imagine poor author San being bombarded by so many song requests. I felt so bad for her. Angry face. But it resulted in this astonishing masterpiece. This is truly a treat to read. Status, complete, so read it. Read it. See Too Much, by Lady Green Frisbee. Author San has a lot of other really good works, so I would check out her profile. This one is seriously intriguing, because Izuku has a super powerful foresight quirk, possibly the strongest in the entire world. Unfortunately, it has its drawbacks and he is bedridden, unable to stay lucid for long periods of time. Status, ongoing. Izuku eats his problems by Cosmic Ace. I have a special place in my heart for this FIC because I am a huge fan of Marvel, and one of my favorite things from the Marvel universe is the Flurkin. I swear, I love Flurkin's shirt. If you don't know what a Flurkin is, look it up. Izuku is not a normal cat boy. He has tentacles in his pocket dimension thingy. Did I also mention that this is Shindeku? I just did. Squeak. Status, ongoing. Level playing field by Logger 3. Izuku has a quirk negation field around him. Meaning if people are within a certain radius of him, their quirks are erased. This works on mutants too. So if you want to see Tokoyami lose the beak, read this. And no, Izuku is not Aizawa's secret love child. Also, this FIC has a rare pairing. Izumomo. Status, ongoing. Advent of Miracles by Elm Tree 1. Do you miss Christmas? Don't we all wish for a Christmas miracle right now? I sure do. Izuku has a Christmas miracle quirk that only works around Christmas time, and he touches the lives of so many people before canon. Status, ongoing. The author will start up this FIC nearing Christmas time again. Yesterday Upon the Stair by Pit Viper of Doom. This FIC breathes heavily is the Izuku Can See Ghosts FIC. Like, it's the OG. And it is so good. I can't even stress it enough. To sum it up, Izuku can see ghosts and talk to them. Status, complete. Burn Your Wings by Crowbird. Thank you users FullMetalDude1, Imecream, and Kyuki_NF for recommending this FIC. Hisashi is an abusive villain. Izuku got a fire/gravity quirk and he's rejecting the fire side as much as he can. But then he sees Shuto and Eri, both of whom have similar issues, and learns to accept himself to save them. The Deku feels in this are overwhelming. Status, ongoing. A force to be reckoned with by Axandir. Izuku has a badass elemental quirk. Izuku is also Hawk's personal assistant to make sure that he's a functional adult. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. Status, ongoing. I hope. Stygian Fire by Lady Green Frisbee. Izuku is Endeavor's bastard son. He inherits a version of his quirk. Endeavor is still kinda an asshole in this one, but he's a little bit better now that there's a cinnamon roll in the Todoroki family's lives. It's still pretty sad though. Status, ongoing. Worse Than Quirkless by Abby Staffy is Geek. Izuku has a super powerful quirk that is the perfect combo of his parents' quirks. Bakugo is quirkless, but he doesn't let that stop him from becoming the most badass support course student ever. This is more Bakugo-centric, but I'm putting it here anyways. Status, ongoing. Immortality is the definition of looks can be deceiving by the foggy London view. Thank you for recommending this FIC user eFlower123. Izuku has an immortality quirk and he is the top quirk expert in the world. Netsu hires him to teach at UA. Chaos ensues. Status, on indefinite hiatus, so if one of you feel inspired and you want to take this FIC over, I'm sure if you ask the author very nicely, they'll let you have it. Winky Face. Brats, all of them. By JC44. Thanks for the FIC rec user eFlower123. This is another immortal Izuku FIC that is pretty much crack-treated, not really, seriously. Status, ongoing warning, slow updates. Something Wicked This Way comes by Eternal Impus. Izuku has a quirk that allows him to see and, somewhat, control demons. Inko and Hisashi get the Worst Parents of the Year award. It's horrifying, to be frank. Definitely fits in the horror category. So this is not for the light of heart. Still a very good read though. Status, ongoing. Associate, by Beyond the Clouds 777. Izuku has a dissociation quirk that lets his ghost leave his body, and it's both convenient and inconvenient at the same time. Either way, he's going to do whatever it takes to become a hero. Status, complete. Imaginary by Miratadoodles. Ever since he was 5 years old, Izuku has had an imaginary friend named Kaken. His friend has spiky blonde hair, crimson red eyes, long dark lashes, and a fiery personality. Inko isn't concerned at first, but soon it starts to grow worrying because teenagers shouldn't have imaginary friends. Izuku insists he's real. Status, complete. Again, I'm admittedly a little bit lazy, and I don't want to post all of passing_ghost_friends works on here, cause she has a lot of quirked Izuku fanfics. The most notable ones being That Isn't a Flesh Wound, ghostly whispers, Midoriya's place, etc. You should really check them all out. The level of creativity is unparalleled. Midoriya Izuku is quirkless, never useless. Who said the only green thing about him was his hair? By the legendary goblin. Izuku runs away from home. Away from the bullies. Away from his coddling mother. He learns how to survive on his own, and becomes stronger in the process. Status, ongoing. Izuku's Precious Villains by Sugar Butterfly 432. Izuku moves into an apartment, with Shigaraki and Kurojiiri as his neighbors. They are automatically protective of the cinnamon roll with smiles brighter than the sun. And so is every single villain in the status, ongoing. When all hell breaks loose by Magic Meiji. Izuku is a certified genius. He is also a certified attention whore. This combination equates to an Izuku who acts like he's high on crack 99% of the time throughout the entirety of the FIC. He somehow becomes the first quirkless hero. Seriously, this is probably the most outlandish quirkless Izuku FIC I have ever read. But it's also one of the best ones I've ever read. It is never boring. #Izuku needs therapy, but his therapist gave up on him a long time ago. Status, on a temporary hiatus until canon can catch up. Still ongoing. Demise of Midoriya Izuku by Gothiclolitapple. Izuku attempts suicide and fails. He is commissioned to a mental hospital to heal both his physical and mental wounds. In the process, he becomes an ungodly, snarky, sarcastic child with a mouth that will send nuns running for the chapel. His therapist agrees with him that Kakin is a piece of shit. #Izuku needs therapy. He gets the therapy, but status, complete, also has a sequel. A Complimentary Dream by Live. That Izuku is a graffiti artist FIC we all needed. Status, complete. Type 2 Hero by Mad Undertoned. Izuku is a smart kid. Netza takes notice and trains him to become a Type 2 hero like him. Status, ongoing. Detective Midoriya by Rogep Pterodactyl and Cute Knight 101. Izuku takes All Might's advice to be realistic and decides he'll become a detective. Detective Neo Mesa is in charge of his training. But just cause he's not in Class 1A doesn't mean he doesn't run into trouble. Izuku is a problem child no matter where he goes. You'll love all of the OC characters at the police station. Except Mori. Mori can go suck my non-existent dick. Status, ongoing. Deku? I think he's some pro, by Mihedin the cuts not coming down. Just because Izuku was born quirkless doesn't mean he's useless in any sense of the word. His IQ is through the roof, allowing him to become a top-rate analyst and strategist. He puts these skills to good use and becomes a mysterious informant for the heroes. This captures multiple heroes' attention and they all decide to help him become the first quirkless hero. So this starts out as Izuku being an analyst and develops into a quirkless hero. Deku FIC. Written by the same author of Viridian, The Green Guide and Mastermind. Strategist for hire. Basically, Mihedin Cuts Not Coming Down has written the holy trinity of Decafics and you should read them all. Shout out to the author. You're amazing. Status, ongoing. Again, I'm admittedly a little bit lazy, and I don't want to post all of passing_ghost_friends works on here, cause she has a lot of quirkless Izuku fanfics. Like, a lot. So please go check out her profile and look at all of her awesome quirkless Izuku fanfiction. Some of these include Deku, the journalist apprentice, Zuku's pet cafe, hero tuber Deku, Izuku is a therapist for villains, etc. The crossovers. The Time Lord, Izuku Midoriya by Sunny Solana. Doctor Who crossover, where the Doctor is Izuku's biological father and Izuku has his own TARDIS. Chaos. So much chaos. But there is never such a thing as too much chaos. If you really love Doctor Who like I do, then you should definitely read this. Status, ongoing. I hope you're proud of me, wherever you are by Sorry Just Another Person. Demon Slayer crossover, where demons start popping up all over modern-day Japan and Nezuko makes it her duty to slay them. All of her family is gone, but through her vigilante deeds, she gains a new one. Izuku, like the problem child he is, wants to help. A definite must-read if you like the anime Demon Slayer. Status, ongoing. Aron High School Host Club. Cherry Blossom Kisses by Eternal Undersuits. OHSHC crossover, where the school's handsomest boys, with too much time on their hands, entertain ladies who also have way too much time on their hands. Izuku Midoriya, a dirt-poor honor student who had never heard of such a club. He just wanted to study in peace, but for some reason he walks into a room full of beautiful men, all of whom think he's a girl. He doesn't bother to correct them. Status: ongoing, slow updates. Not a spare part by Roykit. Sniffles and Blows Nose Marvel crossover, where sobs a little Tony Stark is reborn in Izuku's body starts crying, remembering Endgame. So yeah, Izuku becomes Iron Man. OMG, the feels hit you like a truck full of toilet paper. Status: ongoing. Tie Now a Silver Thread by Blushing Rojas. Ancient Magus Bride crossover, where Izuku is a slay beggy and he is taken in by Elias and Chais to be trained in the magical arts. The anime isn't that popular, but if you watched it and liked it, you should read this. Status: ongoing. The Dragon Whisper by Sassy Toaster. How to Train Your Dragon crossover, where Inko raised Izuku away from the village, with the dragons as his best friends. The author was very creative in creating their own dragons for this FIC. Kudos for them to go the extra mile. Status: ongoing. How to Train Your Useless Dragon by Mika Crispy. Bakugo Katsuki needs to kill a dragon to take its teeth and become a warrior of his tribe. But what? Why the fuck doesn't this dragon have teeth? Written from the prompt, what if Izuku was the dragon? How to Train Your Dragon inspired. Baudega. Status: complete. Dad FICs, Dadzawa, Good Endeavor, Dad Might, Dad for One, etc. Family Secrets by Wintry Fall. Hisashi is happily married to Inko, and they are expecting a baby boy soon. One day, Inko finds a boy sitting in an alley, looking horribly lost. His name is Tenko. They adopt him. But the AFO of this world wants Tenko, and he is hunting for the boy. Hisashi will be damned if he lets his evil twin of this world steal his adopted son. Trust me, if you read it, it'll make a lot more sense. Status: ongoing. All for One's Guide to a Peaceful Retirement by Scottish Sunshine. AFO gave up his villainous past and became Hisashi Midoriya. All because of his promise to Inko to raise their son right. So much fluff. Drown in the fluff. Status: ongoing. Endeavor isn't a burning pile of trash. What a concept. By passing_ghost_friend. Kinda says it all in the title. Status: ongoing. A Slight Difference by La Florian 23. Dadzawa and Dadmite. Izuku was a nerd and giant hero fanboy. He's been to many fights, cheered on all types of heroes, wrote down what he saw and his theories, called in present mix show when he could, and then went back to being quirkless Deku. Too bad he never noticed that the heroes noticed him. And the heroes were sure as hell not going to let the green broccoli cryptid of the hero community go. He'd escaped their attempts to talk enough times as it was. And it was the Izuku learned. Being a hero did not mean he needed a quirk. Status: ongoing. UA's Resident Ghost by Beyond the Clouds 777. Dadzawa. Aizawa is haunted by the ghost of a boy named Izuku Midoriya. Izuku has a thing for post-its apparently. Status: discontinued. Black Cat Cafe by Gotkako Milk. Dadzawa. The best Dadzawa FIC you will ever read. He is not a pro hero. He just adopts strays and runs his coffee shop. You can probably see where I got the cafe idea from. Status: complete. Hindsight is always 20/20 by Experimental Drama. Dadmite. Where All Might accidentally gives Izuku OFA 6 years too early. Oops. Status: ongoing. Endeavor is an embarrassing dad by Xylophone. Again, says it all in the title. Status: ongoing. Reconfigure by Omithian. Takes place several years after canon, where Shigaraki and Dabi have served their time in jail and now they are just ordinary civilians. So, Shiggy, at the advice of Dabi, had one night of fun. About 9 months later, a villainess, the same one he had a one-night stand with, who he didn't know was a villain, walks up to him and literally dumps the baby on him. He calls the cops on her and makes the impulsive decision to take care of the baby himself. Don't worry, all of Class 1A somehow ends up helping, and this somehow works out as a Shigaraki x Uraraka FIC. Shigaraki is somehow a good dad. Don't ask me how it works, it just does. This is a lot better than it sounds, I swear. Status, ongoing. Schrodinger's cat by Izu. Izuku is kidnapped, and a couple months later he's found wandering a deserted road with white hair, psychogenic amnesia and a quirk that is totally out of control. Heavy Dadzawa. Warning, you will drown in the feels. Status, complete. If you need a good long belly laugh. Diamonds in the Rough by Triangerbest Passido. Everyone told Midoriya he couldn't be a hero without a quirk. Everyone, that is, except his friend Bakugo Katsuki. Then again, no one else has seen him beat the shit out of someone with a brick and a 2x4 plank of wood. Status, ongoing. Plus Ultra, plus Action. By Dirtbum. BNHA blooper reel and behind the scenes, but mostly bloopers. No quirk actor with shenanigans galore. Status, ongoing. Hell is a Mess by Magic Meiji. Due to the large debt Izuku and Nizu have racked up with UA, Nizu has decided to start a TV show featuring Izuku and the squad. This features one-shots, AUs, and Q&As from the fanfiction when all hell breaks loose. Some parts will make you crack up laughing, some parts will make you cry. Status, ongoing. Fake News by Sono Svegliato. I'm your editor, she says. And I'm not editing the crap you wrote while half delirious on. She picks up one of his cans, Calpis yogurt-flavored milk soda. Midoriya, how do you even have any brain cells left? The only thing that keeps me kicking is Katsudon and spite. Suzuki holds up both hands. How many fingers am I holding up? 10, he answers immediately, albeit smugly. And how many fingers does it look like I'm holding? His eyes dart to the right. There is a water stain on the ceiling that he swears looks like Gang Orca. How many, Midoriya? He frowns and looks at his shoes. 11.5. Status, ongoing. Missy by Lady Green Frisbee. Bakugo gets a dog. He hates it. He names the dog Mistake. So they call her Missy as a nickname. If you want to see Bakugo struggle as a pet owner, read it. Status, cringes. I'm hoping author-san updates soon. If she doesn't, I'll write it myself. With permission, of course. Revival of Midoriya Izuku by Gothic Lollapalooza. Post-demise of Midoriya Izuku. So if you like the first part, read part 2. More crack treated seriously. Blah. Status, ongoing. Bakugo-centric FICS because he's a main character too, includes popular Bakugo ships like Bakudeku. Cat puns freak me out by Kwaishu. Bakugo doesn't even like animals, let alone cats. For some reason, he rescues the ugliest cat on Earth and brings it to a local vet. Why is the local vet so hot, and why is he now making the impulsive decision to adopt the mangy cat to impress the guy? Bakudeku, in case you were curious, and curiosity killed the cat, you know. Okay, bad puns, sorry. Status, ongoing. Fraudulent by Loren Chapin's Stobemi husband. Katsuki was born quirkless, so what does Mitsuki do? She brings him to an illegal place that chops off his hands and replaces them with hyper-realistic robotic prostheses that replicate a powerful explosion quirk. Yeah, it's pretty messed up. And it messes Katsuki up too. Status, ongoing. Blackagu Widow by Onehibunny. Black Widow is reborn as Bakugo Katsuki. This should go in the crossover section, but this is about Bakugo, so I'm putting it here. Basically, Bakugo is a BIMF, even more so than in canon. Status, ongoing. Cinnamon Bun Bun by Darkmaki. Pro Hero, Ground Zero, aka Bakugo Katsuki, rescues an abused bunny hybrid named Midoriya Izuku. This is honestly so sweet and fluffy and heartwarming. Don't let the tag scare you off. I swear this is a really good read. Hashtag Bakugo's thirsty for fluffy bunny but, hashtag consent is sexy, hashtag Izuku must be protected at all costs. Recommended for 18+. Status, ongoing. A Salty First Kiss by Darkmaki. At a young age, Izuku had a terrifying drowning incident at the beach, and he swears he was saved by a mermaid. Now, Izuku is a college student with no future plans in his life. To help his stepson get his head on track, Toshinori Yagi lets Izuku live at their summer vacation house for a year to take a step back and reevaluate his options. The house sits close to the ocean. One day, Izuku finds a wounded merman, the same one that had rescued him all those years ago. Hashtag both are pining idiots. Hashtag consent is sexy. Hashtag Izuku's thirsty for his fishy boy. Recommended for 18+. Status, ongoing. Official family by Sif, Rosie. Anything by Sif, Rosie, is really good. She has a lot of super good Bakugo content with in-depth analysis of Bakugo's character, and Hawk's content, but we'll get to that later. So this FIC is a part of her forced family AU, where Bakugo is kidnapped by the League of Villains and he eventually feels like a part of their very dysfunctional family of psychos. He and Toga bond over knives. Oh boy. Status, ongoing. Lessons learned by Sif, Rosie. Best Genist acquires a son. Featuring serious talks regarding abuse and emotional scars, one adult finally stepping the hell up and trying to help Katsuki, bashing the sports festival because that was a total shit show, pro heroes having a group chat, and Katsuki finally getting a chance to learn how to get better and become the hero he wants to be. Takes place after Kamino Ward. This has multiple sequels. Status, complete. Forged by nitroglycerin and spite by Sif, Rosie. In which Katsuki's kidnapping goes ever so slightly differently. His classmates don't show up to help him escape. All Might is caught up in fighting Nomu and as a result takes longer to reach Katsuki after All for One teleported him away. Little things add up and Katsuki's path as a hero is forever altered, for better or for worse. AKA, Katsuki acquires AFO. Status, complete. Invisible Scars by Sif, Rosie. Part 1 of Nitroglycerin's Parables. Bakugo's quirk doesn't allow him to have scars. That should be a good thing. Right? Wrong. Status, complete. You should read the whole series, it's very insightful. Procreate by Katya Stark. Izuku has a quirk that allows him to let a man clear's throat get pregnant. All he has to do is be in contact with the person who wants to have the baby, the mom, and the other person who's providing the other half of the DNA, the dad. Izuku is a famous doctor at a fertility clinic, and he is the proud father of a little boy with curly blonde hair, big green eyes, and freckles. Midoriya Hisami. The only problem with this whole thing? Katsuki doesn't know he exists. Status, ongoing. In a sky of a million stars, who cares if one more light goes out? By Stringlish. Izuku takes Kaken's advice, and pays for it, dearly. Katsuki has so many regrets. I like this one a lot because Katsuki goes through so much character development. Plus, Izuku also goes through some character development too. It's a tragically heartwarming story. But the status, ongoing. The Journey of a Broken Hero by Pegasus_099. Izuku takes the leap and dies, but his ghost follows Katsuki everywhere. Katsuki thinks he's going insane. Status, ongoing. A Not-So-Sweet Firework Child by Lady Green Frisbee. A U where Katsuki is spirit-born. He is half human and half something else. R.I.P. Masaru. Status, ongoing. Finding Katsuki by Wicked Andelian. After Kamino and his fight with Deku, Bakugo breaks down and makes the drastic choice to run away and disappear. Kirbo. Status, ongoing. Elixir by Lady Green Frisbee. The U where Katsuki has a secondary quirk that is a very powerful healing quirk. He has been told all his life to keep it a secret, or else. Status, ongoing. I'll Be Good by RandomBystander. Okay. Kinda self-promo, but one of my friends suggested that I put it here. This is my side FIC. It's also my vent FIC. I wrote all of this for the purpose of letting go of my, sometimes very, negative thoughts. Yeah. So this is pretty much a, what if Katsuki never vented his anger and frustration out on Izuku during that fight between them after the provisional hero license exam? Instead, Katsuki bottles it all up and beats himself down for it. No cutting because I don't. This is more about self-hatred and self-loathing. Don't worry, it gets worse before it gets better. Kirishima is there to help Katsuki, because Kirishima is the embodiment of sunshine itself. Read the tags please. Kiribaku. Status, ongoing, nearing completion. Todoroki-centric, not including To Do Deku, sorry, but mostly focused on the whole Todoroki family in general, in which the Todoroki siblings run away by copyright shit. Pretty much says it all in the title. Most of this is from Fuyumi's POV. Lots of family feels. Status, ongoing. Rewind by LadyLazzie. Dabi has a run-in with Eri, who accidentally activates her quirk. Rewinding Dabi back to Todoroki Tuya. Once identified, he is forced to attend UA. The angst is killer here. Status, ongoing. How to accidentally fake your younger brother's death, a guide by Tuya, Dabi. Todoroki by Lori_. Breaking news. Todoroki Shudo has been killed by Dabi, which Hawks knows to be untrue because Dabi was the person that brought a very injured teenager to his apartment to patch him up. The kid might also have a concussion and Dabi was acting weird and Kigo still didn't know what had happened. At least the media didn't know it either because the person they claimed was dead was sleeping on his couch right now and the murderer was in the same apartment. Status, ongoing. Shudo Todoroki and his stuffed girlfriend. Also childhood trauma, by that spicy C flap flap. I'm crying right now because I had a stuffed ear when I was a kid. I would take that thing everywhere. I still have it. Unji the feels. Todoroki's feels hit me like a bullet train. Hop on the angst train everybody. Choo choo. Takes place during the finale of Season 4. Status, ongoing. Hawks-centric fix because he is best Burby. Hawks goes feral and hunts down some bastards by All of this somehow crashes together all at once when after giving a training session in UA, he decides to investigate Todoroki Shudo's home life followed by his instinct. This decision results in Hawks adopting a bunch of first-year students, somehow getting himself adopted by a yellow caterpillar, having a weird relationship with Dabi and the League of Villains, finally snapping against the Commission's bullshit and having a video of himself kicking his childhood hero in the face at terminal velocity going viral for months. Status, ongoing. Feathers, fabric, father figures, and other F-words on Hawks' mind by Sif, Rosie. Hawks is 18 years old, he's the youngest pro-hero to run his own agency, he's got the hero commission behind him, he's moving up in the rankings and he's never been happier. He doesn't have any time to slow down for silly things like eating or sleep. Those things are a waste of time. He knows that. Now if only he could get Best Jeanist to understand that too. For some reason the older pro-hero keeps insisting on poking his nose into Hawks' business, and it's getting downright annoying. AKA, Best Jeanist pretty much adopts Hawks against his will. Status, complete. Far too young to die by Numenum. Hawks takes baby steps backwards, getting closer and closer to the door, as everyone continues to get loud and look at each other for answers. Well, almost everybody. Dabi is watching him limp away with an unimpressed expression. Those are torture wounds, Shigaraki points out, crossing his arms and leveling Hawks with a dead-eyed stare. How do you even know what torture wounds look like? Hawks throws back as he continues to plan his escape. Shigaraki looks at him with raised eyebrows until Hawks looks away again, feeling like an idiot. These people are villains, he knows that, but it's so easy to forget. Right fuck? Status, complete, part 1 of a series. Hawks gets exposed by Green Pinkro. After the raid a sudden meeting is called for pro-heroes, including Hawks, which was incredibly ironic considering it was basically about him. Kind of. The Commission instead revealed the GT program to the heroes Hawks just so happens to work with. As painful memories are brought up time and time again, pro-hero Eraserhead does everything in his power to let the younger hero know that he is not alone in the troubling times. Lots of Dadzuwa and found family vibes. Get the tissues. You're going to need them. Like really, my heart is still torn to pieces. Status, ongoing. Shigaraki-centric because he deserves better. Crossroads by Wintry Fall. How do I explain this without giving away the plot? Izuku is living his dream, part of the hero course in UA, taught by his idol, crushing on the socially awkward and emotionally constipated but sweet classmate. However, there is a huge secret in his past he doesn't know about, a secret he ends up running into, literally. Shigaraki is confused about his destiny and where he lies. You should really read it, it's very good. Status, complete. Ready Player 2 by Munt Creator. Shigaraki, the XX somehow makes an online friend who he only knows as Radical Rex 404. They've never met IRL, They don't know what each other does IRL, but this online anonymity is a double-edged sword. While Shigaraki levels up IRL, XX is forced to face that Radical Rex has feelings for him and that the feelings are mutual. Ashigi/fem, OCFIC? Yes please. Hashtag Shigaraki deserves love too. Status, ongoing. Eri and the League by XX. Tamura wasn't sure what he was expecting after his meeting with Overhaul. Certainly not the sound of small feet running towards him and the feeling of someone grabbing onto him. He certainly doesn't expect to bring a little girl home with him to the League. He doesn't expect to become so attached to her, and he definitely doesn't expect everything that happens afterward. AU where Shigaraki is a good big bro. Status, complete.